This is the legendary trolling of Anthony Jeselnik.
He won't be fully appreciated until he's dead.
So I always looked up to him, always loved him, which is why meeting him and getting to work with him was such a huge disappointment.
If you're a big fan of stand-up comedy, you're probably well aware of the comedian Anthony Jeselnik, who is well known for his incredibly dark one-liners and his arrogant, over-the-top attitude on stage. Anthony is a very great comedian, but there was a time in his career when he was outsmarted by one of his heroes, comedian NORM MACDONALD, while they were working together. As a fan of both of these comedians, this story is an incredibly humorous one, and if you're unaware of the story about the time Norm and Anthony worked together on Last Comic Standing, then you've come to the right place. I will be detailing the story between these two comedians and how it was a legendary moment when Anthony Jeselnik was trolled by a comedian who he genuinely admired. To get a crystal clear understanding of what happened between these two, we need to start off by establishing the full timeline of events. In early 2015, Anthony Jeselnik was called and asked by his manager if he wanted to replace comedian JB Smoove as the host of the reality television talent competition show on NBC titled Last Comic Standing, to which Anthony Jeselnik replied, "Why the fuck would I want to do that? That show sucks." Anthony originally wanted nothing to do with the offer, but then he was informed that the judges would be Keenan Ivory Wayans, Roseanne Barr, and Norm MACDONALD. Norm MACDONALD is one of Anthony's biggest comedic influences, and upon realizing he'd have the opportunity to work with Norm, he would accept the offer to host Last Comic Standing on the spot. Upon accepting the offer, the season of Last Comic Standing would air on July 22nd, 2015, and during the shooting of the show is when all the action would take place. Despite Anthony's eagerness to work with his hero and former Doghouse owner Norm MACDONALD, he cited that the first few days of filming were incredibly rocky and difficult, and that he and Norm did not get along at all.
They asked me to do it, and I thought, oh, that sounds awful, and they're like, no, it's you and Norm MACDONALD. And I was like, oh, I'd love to work with Norm MACDONALD, thinking that it would be fun to work with Norm MACDONALD. And then we just hated each other for like 8 days. We would just like yell at each other. We would like yell at each other. We'd have to like take breaks to calm down. And it's like hard when you're like upsetting one of your idols. You're just like, shit.
He also expressed disappointment in the fact that NBC decided to cut out all of the fights that him and Norm got in, because even though it was uncomfortable for him, he believed that it was great television and that people would really enjoy it.
And then we would talk after each episode and be like, well, at least it's going to be great television. And then they cut all that shit out. They're like, oh, this interesting stuff. No, we got to get rid of that to watch these open micers go head to head.
According to Anthony Jeselnik, NBC also messed up in the editing room and did not do Norm justice at all, because apparently he had some very blunt and brutal moments with some of the contestants where he absolutely trashed them as comedians.
And Norm was like borderline a monster to people. Like, he would say things that would kill me, that I would be like on the floor dying laughing. Like, I would have to take time. One of my favorites was he told this one girl, he said, he goes, "I think that you are incapable of writing a joke." And she goes, "Oh, well, I'll work on that." She's trying to be nice. She's like, "Okay, thank you. I'll work on that." And he goes, No, don't work on it. I said you are incapable." And that was the most like crushing thing he could have said to someone.
So this one lady came up on stage to do comedy, and Norm didn't see any way that this lady could do comedy.
I'm not going to guide any lady through comedy. That would take me, first of all, I'd have to figure out how a lady could do comedy. You know?
What a jip that turned out to be. You know it's not a jip? Liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you're finding value in the content you're watching. I appreciate you guys watching the video. So Norm was incredibly vicious towards some of the contestants. I actually recall one clip where this one comedian did some material making fun of the Bible, and Norm basically called him a hack while the other two judges called him brave. Check this out.
He was like, "Men do not live on bread alone," Matthew 4:4. And it's like, everybody's a little bit magic. Harry Potter, chapter 7.
I disagree. I don't think the Bible joke is brave at all. I think if you're going to take on an entire religion, you should maybe know what you're talking about.
So Norm was very direct to the contestants when he didn't like them. I mean, he could not have been more leashed. Anthony would then proceed to talk about why him and Norm fought so much. He describes it as two alpha males trying to show who is the funniest comedian, which to me just sounds like Anthony being a deeply closeted gay man.
What are you fighting about?
Just like who's going to be the funny one? It's just two alpha males.
Anthony's not lying though, because there was a couple clips of him and Norm exchanging wits, and it's pretty funny. There's one clip in particular I will show because personally it made me laugh.
When you were at the ATM machine, you were no longer a black guy. You were a human being.
That was great. Almost racist, but then you got it right under the bar, Norm. That's why I love you.
This clip makes me sad because if that was left in the final cut by NBC, then there must be some absolutely horrendous but hilarious moments between Anthony and Norm that were left on the cutting room floor. However, Anthony proceeds to talk about how after the first few days of working together, he and Norm started to get along better, and unsurprisingly, the two of them would become a unique and unstoppable comedic force together, and they would make for some of the funniest moments on the show. But none of it made it to the final cut. Then after the taping of Last Comic Standing, Anthony details an exchange between him and Norm when they were backstage getting ready to record press episodes with Larry King on his show. While backstage, they were brainstorming ways to promote the show because apparently Norm had no idea how he was going to do it. Then Anthony suggests that they go on the radio in interviews, and when asked about each other, they would just publicly insult each other and talk shit to promote the show. When Norm heard this, he agreed to it immediately and said he thought it was a great idea.
And so we're backstage at Larry King, and he's like, I don't know how to promote this thing. I don't know what to talk about. So when I talk about these comics, and I go, no, let's do this. Let's say that we had this horrible rivalry, and that we hate each other and just talk trash about like things we would do to each other backstage and like all these, how much we hate each other. He goes, that's great, let's do that. That's really funny. And I'm like, all right, great.
There was one interview where Anthony was asked about it, and he stuck to the plan for every single interview he did. Here's one that comes to mind.
You know, like not every joke has to hit. You don't want to be a crowd pleaser. You want to be a great comedian. And Norm seemed to always be going that way. So I always looked up to him, always loved him, which is why meeting him and getting to work with him was such a huge disappointment.
NORM MACDONALD, who was amazing.
He'll be here in a little while.
He wasn't that great, to be honest. Like, I know he's probably listening to this a little bit, but between you and me, it's more my show.
It wasn't a bit. It was like he was pontificating about things, and female comics especially got it rough.
Yeah.
And it didn't make. He would love someone and hate someone else. And it didn't make. There was no rhyme or reason.
Then Anthony talks about how when backstage, he was the first person to record with Larry King, and when Anthony was asked about working with Norm, he said, quote, Larry, Norm MACDONALD is a piece of shit, end quote. According to Anthony, he could hear Norm laughing backstage. Then when he went backstage, Norm was still laughing about what he had said. Then when Norm goes on Larry King, Anthony's backstage listening, and then Larry asks him about Anthony Jeselnik. Then Norm proceeds to say, quote, Larry, Anthony Jeselnik is one of the greats, end quote. Absolutely hilarious. Additionally, Anthony would continue to do more and more press while keeping up with this plan of trashing Norm every time to promote the show, and Norm would do the exact opposite. Anthony actually talks about how he believed that Norm had just completely forgotten about the conversation they had, but in this interview it would appear that Anthony did not realize that he had just been played like a fiddle by Norm MACDONALD.
So I go around for weeks, and I'm just throwing Norm under the bus, talking about how much I hated him and what an awful person he is. And Norm has completely forgotten that we've made this deal. Norm is just talking about how nice I am and how funny I am everywhere we go. And he still hasn't brought it up to me, but I can't think he's happy.
Now, considering the fact that Norm is now taking a dirt nap, there's no real way for us to 100% confirm if Norm forgot or if he just didn't follow through with the plan, knowing full and well that Anthony trashing him would make him look like a world-class douche, especially if Norm isn't being rude as well. However, if I was a betting man like Artie Lang, I'd put money on the fact that Norm absolutely knew this would make Jeselnik look like an ass, so that's why he did it. In fact, that's what a lot of the Norm fanbase has also agreed on, so I think it's pretty safe to say that's what happened. It's a funny story, and in fact, it's one of my favorite stories because it involves two comedians I really enjoy. As much as I like Jeselnik, he had to take this one on the chin because he was trolled by one of the masters of trolling. Furthermore, some of the details of this story I picked up from seeing Anthony Jeselnik live very recently, where he details the interaction between him and Norm and how Norm was the only celebrity he was ever really excited to meet. And if Anthony releases a new special sometime soon, you will all get to hear this story from his perspective for yourself. I like Anthony, I love Norm, but I just thought this story was too good to not share on the channel, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. All in all, this was the legendary trolling of Anthony Jeselnik. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching the video to the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to support the channel by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and turning on post notifications down below, because that's a free way to help the channel out, and it also helps the community grow brick by brick. I want the YouTube family to hit 100,000 subscribers this year, so please help me out with that by subscribing to the channel. If you want want to support the channel further, you can check out the Patreon page down below, where you can get some exclusive benefits like getting to see videos early, getting to see exclusive content like a podcast I recently recorded and my set at the Tampa Improv. You also get to play a direct hand in the direction my channel takes, and you get shoutouts every single video. Shout out to Jason Murray, Crossblocker, Ethan, Thomas Gill, and Karsten, the newest patron, for supporting me on Patreon. Anyway, hope you guys love the video. Make sure you take care of yourselves, your friends, your family, and your loved ones. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. A good comedian says funny things, but a great comedian says things funny. I don't think there's a single quote about comedy that better describes the late, great Norm Macdonald. When it comes to delivering a joke, there are very few comedians that were ever as gifted as Norm, and the reason for this was that Norm mastered a simple but effective way of conveying a message. Mark Twain called this style of storytelling the humorous story. What is the humorous story? What makes it unique from other types of stories? How did Norm use it on late-night TV appearances, and how does one learn this storytelling ability for themselves? All of these questions will be answered by the end of the video, so if that sounds interesting to you, then let's hop right into it. To begin with, Norm Macdonald had been doing stand-up comedy for many decades in a lot of these popular late-night clips, so by repetition, Norm had already mastered the art of his comedic delivery and his ability to tell a humorous story. Along with that, Norm was an avid reader who greatly appreciated the works of writers like Leo Tolstoy and Mark Twain. Mark Twain actually wrote a short novel called How to Tell a Story and Other Essays about different variations of storytelling. When you read through this novel for yourself, it all starts to make more sense. In paragraph 2, Mark Twain says, quote, "There are several kinds of stories, but only one difficult kind, the humorous. I will talk mainly about that one. The humorous story is American, the comic story is English, the witty story is French. The humorous story depends for its effect upon the manner of the telling, the comic story and the witty story upon the matter." End quote. Follow this in paragraph 3, it reads, quote, "The humorous story may be spun out to great length and may wander around as much as it pleases and arrive nowhere in particular, but the comic and witty stories must be brief and end with a point. The humorous story bubbles gently along, the others burst." End quote. When you read this, it almost feels like Mark Twain wrote this section directly after watching a Norm Macdonald joke on Conan's late night talk show. It emphasizes that the destination of the humorous story is not of any real significance, and that the constant setting and breaking of expectations throughout the joke is what makes it incredibly special and entertaining for the listener. The comic story that you typically hear from your friends or family members is essentially just one big build-up for an often mediocre or unsatisfying ending. Anyone can tell the comic story, but it takes a lot of practice and finesse to tell the humorous story and to tell it well. This type of story resembles anti-humor in the capacity that the ending is sometimes anticlimactic, but I think the biggest distinction is that anti-humor is a joke told with the intention of its unfunniness being entertaining, but the humorous story is told while the storyteller just ensures that the journey is very enjoyable with less of an emphasis on the ending. Mark Twain even says as much in the next paragraph when he writes, quote, "The humorous story is strictly a work of art, high and delicate art, and only an artist can tell it." End quote. This is why I preface this analysis by telling you how Norm had been a veteran of stand-up comedy for decades and decades before we heard the moth joke or heard him call his wife a battle axe. To tell any of these jokes with the flair that Norm told them with takes many hours and many years of hard work. Mark Twain is not exaggerating when he says it is a high and delicate art. Twain then further details the difference between the humorous and comic story when he writes, quote, "The humorous story is told gravely. The teller does his best to conceal the fact that he even dimly suspects that there is anything funny about it, but the teller of the comic story tells you beforehand that it is one of the funniest things he's ever heard, then tells it with eager delight and is the first person to laugh when he gets through it. And sometimes if he has good success, he is so glad that he will repeat the nub of it and glance around from face to face, collecting applause, and then repeat it again. It is a pathetic thing to see." End quote. When I first read this paragraph, I immediately thought of the most convoluted joke ever that Norm does on the Conan O'Brien show.
There was a fella went by the name of Jacques de Gautier. He was from Témiscamingue, Quebec. And Jacques de Gautier, he was a fella that really thought. He was, while I was scrabbling to get out of high school, Jacques Zagatineau had already...
I think you just changed his last name.
Well, you know, a man grows.
Norm is 30 seconds into a story about Jacques de Gautier, and he's already found a clever and cute way to make a joke about his name. He pretends there's nothing even remotely funny about the line, "a man grows," when he subtly delivers it. This is an incredibly unique subversion, but Norm says it as if he has no idea it's about to make the entire room burst into laughter. And that's part of the beauty that Mark Twain articulates for the humorous story. Quote, "Very often, of course, the rambling and disjointed humorous story finishes with a nub, point, snapper, or whatever you like to call it. Then the listener must be alert, for in many cases the teller will divert attention from that nub by dropping it in a carefully casual and indifferent way, with the pretense that he does not know it is a nub." End quote. Another fascinating thing about Norm's delivery is when he fools you into thinking a story or joke is complete, and you quickly realize after you laugh that you're still in the setup of the joke, and you're just trying to pay attention and see where he's going to take you next. Mark Twain also detailed someone named Artemus Ward who commonly used this trick when he was telling a humorous story, where he would deliver a joke, and when the audience took a second to catch it and they started laughing, he would look up with this innocent surprise on his face as if he didn't just say something hilarious, which sounds identical to what Norm MacDonald does. Another important part that Mark Twain highlights about the humorous story is the use of the pause. Quote, "The pause is an exceedingly important feature in any kind of story, and a frequently recurring feature too. It is a dainty thing and delicate and also uncertain and treacherous, for it must be exactly the right length, no more and no less, or it fails of its purpose and makes trouble. If the pause is too short, the impressive point is past, and if it is too long, the audience has had time to divine that a surprise is intended, and then you can't surprise them, of course." End quote. We all know Norm was a master at his comedic timing, and he uses the pause as much as he can to make a funny story even funnier, as mentioned by Mark Twain in How to Tell a Story and Other Essays. Now, I have no evidence suggesting that Norm MacDonald read this story by Mark Twain and used this as his blueprint for late-night television appearances, but I do know that Norm MacDonald was an avid reader of Mark Twain's literature. I can confidently state that this short novel by Mark Twain describes in great detail the process that Norm MacDonald is well known for on his late-night appearances. In order to tell a humorous story and emulate exactly what Norm did on late-night television, you have to apply a few basic principles. First of all, you have to be absurd and incongruent while setting up the story, but the hard part is you have to do it so subtly that people don't realize that you're doing it on purpose. Quote, "To string incongruities and absurdities together in a wandering and sometimes purposeless way and seem innocently unaware that they are absurdities is the basis of the American art, if my position is correct." End quote.
And we thought, boy, he's going to be the next. We had Jean Marchand, Gérald Tertier, Pierre Trudeau, the three wise men of Quebec, by God. And, I met him, I started to do stand-up and travel from here to there and to here again. One time I was in Niagara Falls, and gosh, I went over to the Sea World there. You know how they have the Sea World? You know, with the different fish. You know.
I didn't know that, but okay, yeah, yes.
This was a perfect execution by Norm in the initial setup. He continues to follow this blueprint with several great jokes, then he applies the second principle, which is using the pause to build suspense.
So I was checking out the beluga whales and stuff, and I look over, and who do you think I see?
I hope it's that guy.
No, it was just an attendant, but he showed me to the place I wanted to see, which is where they feed the little baby dolphins.
This silly joke works because Norm is just teasing us with details the entire time and pretending like he doesn't know exactly what he's doing. Then the third principle is to throw away the ending punchline. After Norm has warmed us up, he delivers the final punchline when Jacques de Gatineau is feeding baby dolphins.
And who do I see there but Jacques de Gatineau? And here he is, he's feeding the baby dolphins. And I go up to him and I go, "Jacques de Gatineau, I feel shame for you. You were our hope. You were to go to Canada, Canada's nation's capital of Ottawa. All of Témiscamingue, Quebec, pinned our hopes on you." Now that's a hell of a burden for a man to have a town's hope pinned on them. So he was feeding these baby dolphins, you know. And I said, "I'm ashamed of you, Jacques de Gatineau. You could have done so many great things." He said, "I think I'm serving a youthful porpoise." Now, I believe that...
If there were no incongruities and absurdities throughout the story, this would have been the shittiest comic story ever, but because Norm understands that the journey in the story is more important than the destination, he is able to deliver this corny-ass punchline and receive a huge laugh from it. Norm made the whole story interesting to listen to, so as a result, the ending being anticlimactic doesn't really hurt the joke at all because it's not the focal point of the joke. Now, I know that I laid out these principles like anybody can do this, but the truth is, most people can't. It takes years of practice and hard work to tell a humorous story like this, but at least you know how Norm did it now. When you understand the chasm of difference between a generic comic story and a beautifully delivered humorous story, you come to appreciate Norm's ability to pleasantly waste your time even more so than you did before. Telling a joke like this takes years and years of hard work, and it cannot be learned overnight unless you are simply gifted beyond measure. Let's face it, we're all unfunny compared to Norm Macdonald. He was the fucking greatest. All in all, this is how Norm Macdonald tells a joke. If you enjoyed the video, leave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're new. That's all I got for you guys today. In the meantime, here's another great video about Norm Macdonald that you can watch right now. Norman Jean Macdonald was born on October 17, 1959 in Quebec, Canada. His parents Fern and Percy Macdonald raised him and his brother Neil on a rural farm that Percy inherited from his father. Norm's family was working class and both his parents had jobs as teachers. His deep love for his family and upbringing made him develop an earnest respect for elderly people and the unique wisdom and perspective they brought to any conversation. Norm was also an incredibly well-read and intelligent student when he was in school. He started high school at Quebec High School but transferred to Gloucester High School upon his family moving to Ottawa, where he would graduate at just 14 years old. Then at 16 years old, he went to Carleton University to study math, but didn't care for it, so he dropped out. Norm always loved comedy, and even shares a story about a joke that he saw David Letterman perform that he told all of his friends when he was a kid. He worked a bunch of different jobs, but then at 26 years old, he tried stand-up comedy for the first time at Yuck Yuck's Comedy Club. Howard Wagman managed the club and told a story about Norm fleeing after his first set because he felt embarrassed at how the performance went. But thankfully for all of us, Howard talked him into continuing to do stand-up and that he had a unique talent for it. Shortly thereafter, Norm became a regular at Yuck Yuck's and became very good very fast. Within just 6 months, Norm was granted the opportunity to perform at Just for Laughs Comedy Festival in Montreal in 1986. For some comedians, it takes 5 to 10 years to get an opportunity like this, but Norm was doing it within his first year of stand-up comedy. Unreal talent. Norm did so well that the Montreal Gazette wrote an article about him, but this article also detailed Norm's first encounter with cancer, which forced him to take an entire year off stand-up comedy. Norm never talked about this in his act though, because he figured people would think he was lying. Norm continued doing stand-up and eventually got some excellent opportunities to make a name for himself, like appearing on Star Search and making his television debut on Late Night with David Letterman on May 9th, 1990. Letterman really liked Norm. In fact, he would have Norm on many more times after this, and he went on the record to say that they would have had Norm on weekly if they could have. Later in the year, Norm's father Percy passed away, but it didn't slow him down because less than a year after this, Norm would shoot his first comedy special on HBO, One Night Stand. As Norm continued to gain notoriety, he would eventually cross paths with comedian Dennis Miller, and Dennis would hire him as a writer for the one and only season of The Dennis Miller Show in 1992. Following this, in the same year, Roseanne would hire him to write for her sitcom, Roseanne. Then in 1993, Norm received the comedy opportunity of a lifetime and joined Saturday Night Live as a cast member where he would stay until 1997. This job was a lifelong dream for Norm, and he certainly made an impact with his memorable impressions of Burt Reynolds, Larry King, David Letterman, and Senator Bob Dole, as well as being arguably the best host of Weekend Update in SNL history. People loved the indifference Norm had when reading jokes on Weekend Update, especially towards his biggest target, O.J. Simpson. While working on SNL, Norm would get to meet Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, and the rest of the bad boys of SNL. These connections led to Norm landing a movie role in Billy Madison with Adam Sandler in 1995, and a year later he did another movie called The People vs. Larry Flynt with Woody Harrelson in 1996. Then in 1997, Norm made headlines for doing a corporate clean comedy show at Iowa University with Daryl Hammond and Jim Brewer, where he was intentionally filthy and walked 80% of the audience when he was told to be TV clean. Pretty fucked up, but also pretty funny. Also in 1997, we got to see Norm host the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where he had one of the most interesting audiences of all time, and he still crushed. Furthermore, Norm would be fired from Saturday Night Live Live in 1998, and when asked about it on Letterman and The Howard Stern Show, he stated that it was done by Don Ohlmeyer because Don was good friends with O.J. Simpson and he really wanted him to stop the O.J. Simpson jokes. This was a cover story though. In reality, Norm's friend and head writer Jim Downey was being fired, and when the producers asked about the decision, Norm stood in solidarity with Jim and said he would quit if Jim was fired, and that's exactly what happened. But Norm took this secret to the grave. Just a few months after Norm was fired, he would be selected as the host for the 6th annual ESPY Awards, where he would make one of the most infamous OJ jokes of his career.
He became the first defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy, and congratulations, Charles. That is something that no one can ever take away from you. Unless you kill your wife and a waiter, in which case...
Fucking legendary. Preceding his exit from Saturday Night Live, in 1998, Norm would star in his very own movie directed by Bob Saget titled Dirty Work, which has since become a cult classic amongst Norm Macdonald fans. He would also be a voice actor in Eddie Murphy's Doolittle in 1998. Then in 1999, Norm would be given his very own sitcom titled The Norm Show, where he played Norm for 3 seasons. Also in 1999, NBC would realize their colossal fuck-up in firing Norm, so they invited him back to host Saturday Night Live, to which he proceeded to give a hilarious monologue trashing the show and calling it horrible in typical Norm Macdonald fashion. Then the next year in 2000, we had this legendary moment of Norm promoting his show on The View, where he called Bill Clinton a murderer on national television. We also got to see Norm host the 27th American Music Awards that year, and we even got to see Norm on the game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where he ended up winning and showing everybody just how smart he really was. Also in 2001, we got to see Norm voice acting as Death in Family Guy, and also star in the movie Screwed with comedy legend Dave Chappelle. Then a year later, in May 2001, The Norm Show would be cancelled, making it the worst tragedy to ever happen in the year 2001. Also this year, Norm would voice act in Eddie Murphy's Doolittle 2. Over the next several years, Norm would have a few television projects that would unfortunately perish very quickly, like the TV show A Minute with Stan Hooper that aired on Fox, where Norm was the main character, which would be cancelled after only 6 episodes. Then in 2005, Norm was cast in a sketch show titled Back to Norm on Comedy Central, which once again was killed in its infancy because of lackluster ratings and low viewership. However, in the same year, Norm would land an iconic voice acting role as Norm the Genie in the kids' TV show The Fairly Odd Parents. Then just 1 year later, in 2006, Norm would release a sketch comedy album titled Ridiculous, which was met with mixed reviews from his base of avid supporters. It seems like Norm's best luck in this decade was anything that was far away from sketch comedy. Norm would continue to do stand-up while also snagging some acting roles, such as 2007 when he played Chubby's son in the TV show My Name is Earl, and also a TV appearance on the show Match Game, where he's part of the celebrity panel. In the meantime, Norm also did some commercials in this time frame, like from 2006 to 2008, he voice acted for the Canadian company Bell Mobility, in addition to being the gingerbread man in AT&T commercials from 2007 to 2008. Then in 2008, we saw Norm do the legendary roast of Bob Saget, where he took the roast about as seriously as you would take fitness and diet advice from Lizzo. Following this, in 2009, Norm pitched a reality show about himself to Fox, but the series would be scrapped halfway through the filming process. Norm would also be featured as a regular guest on late-night talk shows, proving to be one of the most consistently funny guests of all time. It's impossible to track all the best ones, but I promise you they're not difficult to find. Moving on, 2011 would prove to be a really good year for Norm, beginning with the release of his first hour-long stand-up comedy special titled Me Doing Stand-Up, which was met with high praise from comedy fans, and then Norm would star in his own talk show called The Sports Show with Norm Macdonald. Then a few more years passed by, and in 2013, Norm started his very own podcast called Norm Macdonald Live with some fucking douchebag named Adam Egget as his co-host. The show featured many different guests and stayed on YouTube for 3 long seasons. Then in 2014, we got this legendary appearance from Norm where he hosted YouTube's big live comedy show alongside Jenny Slate and Kasim G, where he rightfully made a mockery out of the entire event. Then in 2014, we got to see Norm do some voice acting as the Pigeon on Mike Tyson Pigeon Mysteries. Later on, 2015 would prove to be a huge year for Norm, where he did some voice acting in the Canadian TV show Sunnyside, where he played a talking manhole. He was a judge on the NBC show Last Comic Standing, and most notably, he did the last late-night stand-up set on Late Show with David Letterman, where he broke down into tears given the sheer gravity of the moment. We also saw Norm as Colonel Sanders in KFC commercials for a bit. Then a year later in 2016, we saw Norm release his incredibly funny book titled Based on a True Story, Memoir. And on top of that, we saw him host the 2016 Canadian Screen Awards, where he showed showed a lot more reverence and respect than previous hosting occurrences. Then in 2017, we got to hear Norm voice acting as Yaphet, the talking blob, in Seth MacFarlane's TV show The Orville, and then we saw the release of Norm's second hour-long stand-up comedy special titled Hitler's Dog, Gossip and Trickery. Then in 2018, Norm was embroiled in controversy for publicly criticizing aspects of the Me Too movement, and this led to him having an appearance on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon canceled. The most disappointing thing about this is that if this bullshit didn't happen, we probably would have gotten a few more late-night appearances from Norm. Also in 2018, we saw Netflix purchase the rights to Norm Macdonald Live and then rebranded it as Norm Macdonald Has a Show, which a lot of people said was not as good as the original series back when it was on YouTube. Norm would continue doing stand-up for many more years. Then in March of 2020, right before the lockdown started, we got to see a set from Norm at the Hollywood Improv posted on his very own YouTube channel where he talks about the big cough. Little did the people know this would be the last time Norm Macdonald would ever perform stand-up comedy. Then a year later, in 2021, 4 years ago today, Norm Macdonald would die from cancer. His audience in the world of comedy were shocked to know that this was not a new development. Rather, he had been diagnosed with cancer over a decade ago and privately dealt with it until he lost his battle with cancer. Well, I guess it was more of a draw, really. But seriously, Norm Macdonald to a lot of people was a great comedian. If you ask some people, including myself, he was the greatest comedian to ever live. I love Norm Macdonald. He inspired me in many ways, and if you've made it this far, you probably love him too. Every year in September on this channel, I post a video to commemorate Norm and his comedy legacy, and I hope you guys appreciated this one. If you did, make sure to leave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a comment with your favorite Norm Macdonald moment of all time, and if you want more content about Norm Macdonald to watch right now, click the link on your screen here to watch this video about the time Norm Macdonald was kicked out of Iowa by the governor for being dirty at a corporate clean comedy show. I know you guys are going to love it. Anyway, take care and God bless. Norm Macdonald and Chris Kattan have quite the history together at Saturday Night Live, and I'm not talking about some type of gay sexual escapades. I mean that for a period of time these two stars clashed heads and did not get along, and it made for an incredibly entertaining story that was circulated by comedy fans. But was it a real feud, or was it merely for our entertainment? In today's video we will be finding out what happened between Norm and Chris on Saturday Night Live, why they might not have liked each other for a period of time, and whether or not they ever buried the battle axe. So if that sounds interesting to you, then let's hop right into it. To begin with, these two alleged doghouse owners were on Saturday Night Live in the 90s. Norm was a cast member for 5 seasons from 1993 all the way up until 1998, while Chris Kattan was a cast member for 7 seasons from 1996 all the way up until 2003. This brought them in close proximity to one another for the 22nd and 23rd season of Saturday Night Live. Now, I imagine with the stress and pressure that comes along with working on a show as massive and prestigious as Saturday Night Live, that sometimes you might see the worst in people, whether it be through a drug addiction or impulsive behavior. But according to Chris Kattan in the beginning, Norm did treat him respectfully. Then as time went on, Norm and Chris would start to get on each other's nerves a little bit. And Norm, being who he is, would eventually air his thoughts on who he believes Chris lies down in bed with.
Quick Norm story. Great quick Norm story.
Shit, Artie.
Well, Jim will appreciate that. They do a big Rolling Stone article about the Kansas City.
Ah, that was a great one, man.
Wait, what did you They do a big Rolling Stone article about the cast.
I got
about
a good
the
one.
What? So the cast of Saturday Night Live.
Right, yeah.
And it's everybody kissing each other's ass. So they ask Norm about Chris Kattan. And it's after pages of, I've never seen someone do better character work. Norm's quote is, he seems gay to me. He goes, I've never met a guy who said he wasn't gay. He seems so gay. But I guess he says he's not gay, so whatever.
Hey.
I love that.
Now obviously this didn't seem like a huge deal at the time. If you're a subscriber of this channel, you're probably a pretty big Norm Macdonald fan, and him calling people gay to tease them was a pretty common occurrence. If anything, it's probably a sign that he's fond of you as a person. So at first, this doesn't seem like anything more than some banter between two star-crossed lovers, but then when Chris Kattan is asked about it on the Howard Stern show, we get some more details about the interactions between Chris and Norm.
What about Norm Macdonald? You're at war with him as well. You two don't like each other.
Warring with Norm?
Here's what Norm said.
Oh, good.
I got it for you.
Another one.
Chris and Norm Macdonald apparently hate each other. This is according to my notes. When Norm hosted Saturday Night Live, Chris did not appear on the show. I don't find him funny. What can I say? Never made me laugh. What happened between... First of all, I don't believe you're gay, are you? I know someone you dated.
No, I'm not gay.
Yeah, you did.
And he's certainly had to have laughed at you once or twice.
Right.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
a funny guy.
Right.
Well, that was the
your characters. Some of your
article.
characters are effeminate, so maybe people think you're
right.
gay.
Like Mango's, like, you know,
he's gay.
Queer as day.
Right. So
and Yeah.
So is Norm a homophobe? Is that the problem? He doesn't like gay characters?
I definitely think he has a problem with
But give me the history of this. I love feuds.
Well, let's see. When I first got on the show, he was so nice. He and Spade,
right,
were just like so nice, and then I don't know what happened. He just started. Like Garth Brooks was, we did like a pitch meeting, and he started saying things in the pitch meeting like, you don't want to do like Garth Brooks was a guest.
Yeah.
Was a guest. I was like, I'm sure you don't want to do another sketch. Right. Like things like that, people would laugh.
Oh dear.
I was like, why is he saying
all of this?
And then it got kind of old, like, Jesus, Norm, you're like another...
And it makes you inhibited in a writing meeting if someone's goofing on you every time you open up your mouth, right?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't care because I'm not gay. If I was like, some gay guy going, I don't want anyone to know that I'm just...
Right. And so the gay jokes kept going and going and going.
Yeah, the gay jokes kept going and going.
And then you finally said, hey, I've had it with you, Norm.
Well,
Did you ever confront him?
A little bit, yeah. But it's like a playful thing. He says it's like a Jack Benny, Fred Allen kind of a feud thing.
But you don't see it that way?
No. I think he's, I don't know.
According to Chris, in the beginning everything was fine between them, but as they worked together more and more, they started to dick around and make fun of each other more. Norm even detailed that he didn't actually hate Chris or even dislike him, but that they had this little faux feud between them, similar to Jack Benny and Fred Allen, who were popular comedians who performatively clashed in 1936 on Fred Allen's radio show titled Town Hall Tonight. The feud did have a lot of funny moments though, like the story Chris Kattan tells about the time they sat next to each other on a plane.
We were on a flight together. We didn't plan on being together on the same flight. We were flying from LA back to New York to do Saturday Night Live, and it was a red eye, and he's behind me, and we're getting along, whatever. He's talking about crapping on women, or I don't know what he was talking about, something like that.
Yeah, something.
And it was funny because he was so loud,
right?
So everyone else could hear it. I'm like, I just crap on this girl.
Yeah,
and I'm like, laughing,
right?
Because he's a funny guy.
Yeah.
And then I wake up, and because it's a red eye, and one of my shoes is missing. And I was like, where's my shoe? And Norm's like, you lost your shoe, huh? And then he leaves. And I'm like, so disoriented. And I'm the last guy in the flight looking for my shoe. And I just, walk off the plane with one shoe. And all the stewardesses like, you are funny.
Oh, no. So he stole your shoe.
He stole my shoe.
And he's playing goofs on you. He's not respecting you.
Right. And then I took his jacket on a really cold night.
Yes.
And his assistant called me at home going, I got to get Norm's jacket. Please get me Norm's jacket. When she was like freaking out.
Right.
In addition to this goofy story, Will Ferrell actually told the ending to this story on Fly on the Wall with Dana Carvey and David Spade.
He's like, come on, give me back my shoes. I know you took them. I know. Norm's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Kattan has to walk through JFK.
With no shoes?
With no shoes, just in his socks. An entire season goes by. And then Kattan and Norm are jousting back and forth about something.
They used to joust a little bit.
And then Norm finally goes, oh yeah, and one other thing, I did take your shoes.
So this story is all well and good, but eventually on the Howard Stern show, Chris starts talking about how Norm wanted to be on the cover of the Rolling Stone magazine, but Artie Lang called in to mention how this narrative is untrue. Now, if Norm and Chris were on good terms, why would he feel the need to lie about this? The conversation that led to Artie calling in was when the previous caller mentioned how Jim Breuer had an issue with Chris while they worked on Saturday Night Live over accusations of a stolen idea.
Chris,
thank you.
Is it not true that Jim Breuer, your former cast member, had a problem with you as well?
I think at one point he thought I stole an idea from him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, man, there's so much infighting. You got to admit.
But that's it, though.
Really?
That's not much for like 6 years.
With a lot of the cast members, and I think with Chris, do you remember that Rolling Stone cover came out, and they only put certain members of SNL on the cover?
Yeah, that was a big deal.
Didn't that cause a lot of strife inside?
Yeah. I mean, Norm wanted to be. There's a big stink because he wanted to be on the cover
by himself.
Yeah.
Really?
No, I don't know if he wanted. No, he wanted to be
in that picture.
I don't know. He showed up later, and then he wanted to be he wanted to stand in the middle of us.
And you said no.
Well, it was just like weird.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Why are you
like, who are you?
Like, here is like my variety show.
Yeah, hey, Artie.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, no, I like Chris. I think he's funny. But what he said before about that Rolling Stone cover is wrong.
All right, go. Artie's going to defend Norm, I guess.
Norm represents.
You know, you might be wrong.
All right, go ahead.
No, it's just that Chris made it sound like Norm showed up begging to get on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Oh no, he wasn't begging. He was just like assuming he was on the cover with us, and
Well, he was though.
I know he was.
But he wanted to stand in the middle as well.
No. Norm, they were begging Norm to do it, and he thought it seemed weird.
He didn't want to do it.
Right, he thought it seemed weird to stand in the middle of all you guys.
Oh, that's true.
They definitely wanted Norm
That
to
is
be on
true.
the cover because at the time, I mean, he was the funniest guy on the show. Howard, you've said that a million times.
I think Norm is hysterical.
He is. I already said that.
Yeah, and so does Chris.
As much as I love Chris Kattan and Night at the Roxbury, it seems like Artie did catch him stretching the truth here. So this was the inception of the little feud between Norm and Chris Kattan, but then the next time we heard about their feud was when Jim Breuer told the infamous story about the Twilight Zone sketch. He tells the story in this clip of him doing stand-up, but I prefer him telling the story on the Howard Stern show.
Pamela Anderson is on it. Every time a hot chick would come on, Kattan would go over the top to like, oh my God, he'd write a sketch, we're going to make out. And Norm is the guy who's got to go, imagine if you will. And Norm doesn't read sketches, and he's a pro. Right. So he would rehearse it and go, hey, imagine if you will, and second time, and Kattan would go, oh my God, you don't even sound like him. Why would you do that? Now we go to air, and Norm still hasn't said nothing. Every time Kattan would say something to him, I'd look at Norm like, hey, man, you're my hero. What's up? Because if you're not going to say something, I will. Right. And sure enough, he'd give me like a wink. I swear to you, he'd give me a wink. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Live air comes on, and I'm like, 20 seconds to the Twilight Zone sketch. He starts up again. We're mic'd, the whole audience is listening. He's like, oh, God, Kattan. Norm, you better sound like... Oh, God, Pamela, you're so hot. Norm, you're gonna... Pamela, I can't wait if you ever get rid of... 10 seconds! Norm turns to Kattan. Right before his head, he goes, hey, Pamela, did Chris tell you he's gay yet? And he's got all this rage because he likes being gay. Everyone, why don't you just say you're gay and you wouldn't have all this anger and be a pester? 5 seconds! And you wouldn't have all this rage and try to interrupt everyone's sketch because you suck this week. And we're on! Imagine if you will. I'm like, there's my hero. There's my hero.
See, he knew to save it for the live air.
Saved it.
Now this made it seem like there may have been some type of strife between Norm and Chris, and maybe there was at the time. However, it seems like eventually they both let it go and moved on with their lives, because in 2011 they both were set on a project called Hollywood and Wine, and this video circulated of the two guys just jawing and flapping their gums, and everything seems cool between these two fellas.
You be the girl.
Jodie Foster?
Yeah, just say something.
Who recently came out, right?
Yeah, but don't put that.
I'm not plugging that.
Okay, so just say it like you're.
I don't
I'm Hannibal the cannibal.
I'm Jodie Foster. I can't do Jodie.
No, just say any line.
Okay, Hannibal, you're terrible. What have you done to these innocent people?
Clarice, I don't know what you dream about, but I ate a guy. That wasn't good at all. I've never done it. Here's the problem. I've never done an impression of him.
Do one.
Okay,
Here's Jessica Biel from Flashdance.
Okay. So okay, Jessica. Yeah. Man, aren't you getting ready for your dance?
Yeah, I gotta go. I got a big thing tonight. It's like
Jennifer.
That much. My Jessica Biel and his Anthony Hopkins.
It was pretty close. They were pretty close.
So everything seems lighthearted and fun in this clip, which makes me think that there was never any type of feud between the two to begin with. It really supports that the feud between Chris and Norm was all for show, and that they probably thought highly of each other the whole time. Then later on in 2015, we got to see Norm do an interview with Huffington Post, where he was asked about Chris Kattan, and he makes a few jokes about Chris that seem to be completely absent of malevolence.
Well, Chris is a great guy, but he used to bring around women all the time to the show, you know. Big, tall women, you know. Big bruisers, you know. And he'd say, look, I'm heterosexual. I mean, he wouldn't say that out loud, but that's what that would be the caption on the picture in the New Yorker. Boy, those are funny.
So it was something related to his sexuality.
Maybe. But listen, if I call a person gay, that ain't no insult.
It's a good thing nowadays.
Yeah, if you say it's an insult, you're the homophobe, not me.
Correct. Supreme Court says so.
That's absolutely.
All right, this is so fucking funny. I hate to be a D1 Glazer here, but Norm really was the funniest guy to ever live. I don't care what anybody says. Then 6 years later, Norm would die from cancer, and Chris Kattan would do an interview where he was asked about Norm and the relationship they had. He shared a lot of stories and insight as to why he had such a deep admiration for Norm as a comedian and as a cast member on Saturday Night Live. He even confirmed the idea that their feud was all for show, and Norm even said behind the scenes that there was no bad blood and that they teased each other for the entertainment of the audience and also fellow cast members, as we heard from Jim Breuer's story. He also detailed a story about making Norm laugh while he was doing Weekend Update, and also how Norm talked to Chris's mother for 10 minutes and they had a really wholesome conversation. With all of these words of high praise, it makes it abundantly clear that there was never any beef between these two fellas and that their iconic Saturday Night Live feud was all for show and entertainment. That being said though, it is really fun to look back at all the funny moments and stories between them and quote them to friends and in comment sections. If you guys want to leave some jokes about Chris Kattan and Norm in the comments down below, please do it, and also hype this video so more people can find it and get a good laugh for themselves. All in all, this was the truth about the iconic feud between Norm Macdonald and Chris Kattan on Saturday Night Live. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and if you're looking for more content right now, click the link on the screen to watch this video about Norm Macdonald where I tell you the entire history of his career in only 10 minutes. This video is great if you want to learn more about our favorite chunk of coal, and your time is extremely limited. Other than that, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. God bless. Norm Macdonald is a comedy icon. He had a reputation on Saturday Night Live for being one of the ballsiest Weekend Update hosts to ever sit behind the desk. Tina Fey once said that Norm was the last dangerous cast member on Saturday Night Live, and he's also been described as the first and last bad boy of SNL. Eventually, Norm was fired from the show though, and why was he fired?
The show blows!
No, Norm was actually fired for his unwavering integrity and loyalty to his friend Jim Downey. In this video, we're going to talk about the real reason Norm Macdonald was fired from SNL and some of the common misconceptions about why Norm was fired, along with why Norm took his secret to the grave. So if all that sounds interesting to you, then let's hop right into it. To begin with, a common misconception about Norm Macdonald's firing from SNL is that it was done by NBC executive Don Ohlmeyer because of all the jokes he made at the expense of acquitted murderer and common breakfast beverage O.J. Simpson. Don did raise some issues to Norm and Jim Downey about this, but it's not the real reason that Norm himself was fired from the show. Part of the reason so many people have believed this for so long is that Norm went on the Howard Stern show and Late Night with David Letterman and built this narrative that he made an enemy in Don Ohlmeyer after he was told to stop making O.J. Simpson jokes, yet Norm persisted because of his authentic internal comedic compass.
You had heard rumors that there were going to be changes. It doesn't look good.
And so then the guys go, hey man, you got to call this dude Don Ohlmeyer, who's the president of the network.
And they're telling you you've got to call Don Ohlmeyer.
Right.
So when you called Don Ohlmeyer, what did he say?
He said he didn't want me to do update. He doesn't think I was funny.
He said that to your face?
Yeah.
I don't think you're funny.
On the phone he did this?
He said to me that update is like dragging down the show. He said, I want you to be better. And I go, well, I can't, because if I'm not funny, an unfunny guy can't be funny.
Lorne Michaels fire you?
No, he didn't. He didn't fire me.
Right.
He likes me and stuff.
Well, it's his show, isn't it?
I thought it was his show, yeah. They said that this guy, Don Ohlmeyer, who turns out to be the president.
Yeah, now I know Don Ohlmeyer, and just between you and me, he's an idiot.
Oh. So he goes, oh yeah, I'm firing you there from the show. And then I said, oh, that's not good. I said, why is that now? And he goes, oh, you're not funny.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh, Lord, that's even worse news, You have to be philosophical about these things. I mean, at first, like when I found out, I was upset, but then, I really started to think about it, and plus I drank a lot of whiskey. But then the next day I sobered up and I remembered, that I still had some whiskey left.
Now, these interviews are legendary and possess endless rewatchability, but Norm knew what he was doing here and was concealing the true reason he was fired to protect his friend Jim. To understand how Norm was protecting Jim Downey, we need to first understand who Jim was and what he meant to Norm Macdonald. If you're a veteran fan of comedy, Jim probably needs no introduction, but in case you need your memory refreshed, Jim Downey is a comedy writer, not just any ordinary writer. Jim holds the record for the longest tenured head writer in Saturday Night Live history, with 10 seasons under his belt, and also the record for longest tenured writer in the show's history, with 30 total seasons under his belt. He also wrote for Late Night with David Letterman as head writer in a crucial and formative stage of the show. Jim was like the Babe Ruth of comedy writing, not because he was good at it before black people were allowed to do it, but because he was just a powerhouse of comedy writing. Dennis Miller even called him the second most important man in the history of Saturday Night Live behind Lorne Michaels, which is one hell of a compliment. The point is, if you have any recollection of moments on Saturday Night Live that were good, there's a strong chance that Jim Downey played a huge hand in the development of it. He was also the school principal from the movie Billy Madison who said this classic line:
"What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard."
Even some of the best jokes on Weekend Update were written by Jim Downey, which brings us right back to Norm Macdonald. Norm and Jim reportedly spent a lot of time together, away from the cast and crew, which is where a lot of the writing took place. Norm and Jim got along really well, which caused their working relationship to grow stronger. Jim even said for a while they stopped doing OJ jokes to make people think they were fully done with them, but then brought them back later on, which is such a funny move.
I'm sure we did an OJ joke, at least one OJ joke every
show, yeah.
From 94, 95, and 96. And then finally, the fall of 97. So we opened that season, the fall of 97, right? Spring 98. We didn't do any OJ jokes. And we didn't do any OJ jokes for the first 8 shows.
Wow.
And then the Christmas, it was a long stretch of like, it was like the bombardment has stopped, and then suddenly, I think they stopped. They have stopped. You know, it's peace in the valley. And then on the 8th show, we did 2 OJ jokes.
Hilarious, man. However, when Norm and Jim were told to stop making jokes about OJ Simpson directly by Don Ohlmeyer, the two would disobey this order, which led to Jim being in hot water with the show producers. Then when Norm was asked by the producers how he felt about their decision to fire Jim, he did not hold back and gave his honest opinions about it. Jim tells the story of exactly how this happened on Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend.
People who are fans of Norm deserve to know this about him. The network went to Norm and said, "We want to get rid of Jim Downey, and we just want you to know you're cool with that, right?" He said, No. If you can't fire him, if you fire him, I quit." And they go, "That's crazy. I mean, you know, he's not helping you, you know." And he said, "Well, no, I'm not doing it without him." And he never told me that. And I didn't hear that for years. I heard it from some network executives. And and part of everything else, if that had been me, that would have been, you bet Norm would have heard. You know,
you would have talked about it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, come on.
So Norm was not fired for any of the jokes he made. He was fired from SNL because he refused to do the show without his friend Jim Downey. Some people may call that bold, loyal, or even stupid, but you can't deny that Norm's decision came from a position of integrity. We know that also because Jim mentioned how he didn't even know about this until after Norm's death in 2021 because another producer from Saturday Night Live told him about it, which means that Norm took this secret to the grave and never told anybody about it. In my opinion, the likely reason Norm kept quiet about this was because he didn't want a big brother Jim Downey and make it seem like he lost his job because of him, and also because he didn't want to morally grandstand to comedy fans about what happened to him, because to Norm, being funny always came before being morally righteous. So Norm, instead of airing this dirty laundry, decided to tell this funny story about Don Ohlmeyer firing him for not being funny on Letterman and Howard Stern. To clarify, I do think Norm and Jim were confronted by Don Ohlmeyer and that this story happened, but Norm just left out the part that he was fired because of his refusal to do the show without Jim to make the story funnier. Then, of course, a year and a half later, Norm would be brought back to host Saturday Night Live after finding success with his sitcom, The Norm Show, and would give likely the most infamous monologue in Saturday Night Live history.
A year and a half ago, right, I had a sort of a disagreement with the management at the NBC. I wanted to keep my job, right? And they felt the exact opposite. So you see, they fired me because they said that I wasn't funny, you know? But now, this is the weird part, right? It's only a year and a half later, and now they asked me to host the show. So I wondered, I go, hey, wait a second here. Hey! I go, how did I go in a year and a half from being not funny enough to be even allowed in the building to being so funny that I'm now hosting the show. How did I suddenly get so damn funny? It was inexplicable to me, because a year and a half, let's face it, is not enough time for a dude to learn how to be funny. Then it occurred to me, I haven't gotten funnier. The show has gotten really bad. So yeah, I'm funny compared to, you know, well, you'll see later. But okay, so let's recap. The bad news is, I'm still not funny. The good news is, the show blows. All right, folks, we got a bad show for you tonight. Dr. Dre.
This was so fucking funny, man. This was just one amazing moment in Norm's long comedy career, and part of the reason we all love and respect him endlessly. People also thought that Lorne Michaels had a strife with Norm because of the whole Don Ohlmeyer situation, but this could not be further from the truth. Think about it like this. Norm got fired from the show and then came back to trash the show as the host, and after all of that, Lorne would still bring back Norm to appear on Saturday Night Live. Canadians always stick together. But this was the full story of why Norm Macdonald was fired from Saturday Night Live, how Jim Downey's situation impacted Norm, and also why Lorne Michaels never had any hard feelings towards Norm to begin with, even after he was canned from the show. If you enjoyed this video or learned something new, make sure to leave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Also, hype the video to help more people see it. If you want to see more content from me, click the link on your screen to watch my last video on Dennis Leary and his infamous stand-up comedy plagiarism scandal with Louis C.K. and Bill Hicks. Click the link to watch that next. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and God bless.
And there's Charles Woodson. How about that? Huh? What a season he had. Great, man. He became the first defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. And congratulations, Charles. That is something that no one can ever take away from you. Unless you kill your wife and a waiter, in which case... all bets are off. Just a word of advice.
You've admitted that you're lazy. I think you've read 6 books in your life.
I've read 6.
6. What kind of a woman would be attracted to you, do you think?
Well, I have a lot of money.
Oh.
Donald, God bless you. Watching your set was like watching Henry Fonda pick blueberries.
Now, wait a minute.
What's that? Oh, he wants to say something.
Why, I don't think there's a person in here that would not love to watch Henry Fonda pick blueberries.
What a disaster.
Jenny, all the stars are here.
It's true.
Beardy Man, Claude Racine, Dax Flame, Betty Fine,
You got it.
and Raffi Fine. All the stars
You really keep up with all that
are
stuff.
here tonight. Oh, yes. Harley Morenstein is here.
All right. And we also have comedian Todd Glass. He'll be hanging out backstage with some of tonight's guests. And on the red carpet, we've got comedian Kulap Vailesak and host...
I feel like Todd will be struggling to know these people.
I'm sorry, I'm going to continue with the what the computer says, Norm, although I'd love to talk to you more than this computer.
We're on
but
the
I have to do
computer.
what the computer says, even though I do love you, Norm. I think you're one of the best. We're also going to be talking to the host
I'm no Harley Morenstein.
You're not, Norm, but you gotta just let me read this fucking thing.
Alec Baldwin, he must have.
Oh, yeah, every season, pretty much.
He's amazing. I don't know what he's doing now.
He was unreal.
Weird tweets. But he used to come when he was a lot younger, I guess, because it was when I started, which was 20 years ago. And he was married to Kim Basinger. And he'd complain about her, like, she's the most beautiful woman. Fucking wife. She bought a town. He was mad because she bought a town.
A town? She bought a whole town? Oh my God.
So their credit score went down a little. So
You see you bought a town.
And then he comes in. Baldwin looks perfect, you know. He just had dinner with Lauren, and he goes, he's trying to be like us, you know, one of the guys. And he goes, that secretary, no, not that, he didn't say secretary. He goes, that assistant girl out there, man, I'd saw my left leg off to fuck her.
Jesus Christ.
And I said, I think all you have to do is ask her. Why?
Yeah, you're Alec Baldwin. I think you're all right.
Now, do you think Cosby's legacy will be hurt?
Yeah.
You do, huh? I mean, there was a comedian, Patton Oswalt, he told me, I think the worst part of the Cosby thing was the hypocrisy. And I disagreed.
You disagree with that?
Yeah. I thought it was the raping. That's my feeling, most rapists are hypocrites. You don't meet many go, I like raping, and I know it's not politically correct, but by God, people go, well, he's not being a hypocrite, and that's the worst part.
Do you know about this girl? She's mad at you. Greg was interviewing some girl, and she was going off on
I know who it is.
What's the girl's name?
You know, me and Norm have worked with her before. That's why he's going to laugh when I say the name. Laura Keitlinger. Hates your guts.
Did you know she hates you? Oh, my God. Do you want to hear the clip?
By the way, wait, can I interrupt your old friend, Norm MacDonald? Did you guys write together on,
He's not a friend of mine.
Roseanne, right?
Well, I was just using it loosely.
Now, you had a reaction
not
just
a
now to
friend
Norm
at all.
MacDonald. Not a friend, not a fan.
You worked with him, though.
At Saturday Night Live.
Roseanne.
No, I missed him at Roseanne. Well, I came in, and he was supposed to be the my guide through SNL, and it turned out that he is a shit stirrer.
He was busy pissing in a bucket in front of people.
Well, no, he loves to pit people against each other. You know, it's funny that you said that because he's probably one of the few people I really don't like.
Wow, I've never heard that about. Everyone loves Norm MacDonald.
Well, I mean, I barely remember Laura from the show, except for her hit characters, obviously.
I don't even know who she is.
But she makes Morwena Banks look like Gilda Radner. But no, she came in directly after me, so I wouldn't be her
mentor.
Yeah, I'm not going to guide any lady through comedy. That would take me. First of all, I'd have to figure out how a lady could do comedy. And then I'd have to.
You strike me, Norm, from what I'm getting from this conversation, you are a man's man. Do you actually believe that women can't be funny? I'm being serious. Are you kind of more in the school that guys are funny comics, just somehow women can't make that transition?
Well, I don't know about you, but when I was in fucking school and shit like that, I'd be in high school, and you could hear peals of laughter, and you'd run over there, and there'd be a big group of people laughing and laughing. Who'd you see in the middle? A broad.
Sure. Did you see the Kramer thing?
Oh, I did see that. We could look at that right now if we wanted to, but we don't have to look at that.
Laugh.
Yeah. Does that make you laugh when you see that?
Makes me laugh.
You've done stand-up.
I know Michael Richards.
You do? Okay.
And he's no racist. He's not a racist. And when you say something like that crazy, it can only be a joke. You know what I mean? He was out of his head element. He didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But there's no way that a guy who's racist screams it at the top of his lungs. You know what I mean?
Well, certainly, I don't think he was anticipating the fact that a cell phone could have been putting this onto CNN as he was saying it. I think he was
right.
thinking,
He wouldn't do it on the Craig Ferguson show.
Right. Maybe on here, though. We could maybe to get him on here to recreate that rant. I don't know, up here in front of the brick wall.
Well, let's get to O.J. O.J. Simpson's lawyers say they don't want the families of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman in the courtroom during the trial. They're afraid the presence of the family members will just remind O.J. of how much more killing he still has to do. Well, O.J. Simpson's lawyers stopped feuding this week, finally. The Dream Team, F. Lee Bailey and Robert Shapiro, were able to put aside their differences and express their admiration for each other after O.J. threatened to cut their heads off.
They always want the new people. Hey, guess what? There's a young girl that's middling attractive that swears a lot. Let's get her. What? Is that the new fucking thing?
Yeah.
Sarah Silverman, hysterical.
Right.
Who's funnier than her?
Nobody.
No, except dudes. But,
no Bob.
I was just thinking, you know, because they had that Viagra thing out.
Yeah.
And the other day, you know, Bob Dole came right out and said
he was one of the first.
Yeah. And, you know, you don't want to hear about Bob Dole's cock, you know? I mean, President Clinton's cock, Bob Dole's cock, what the hell? But mostly, an old man like that, an old man, you don't want him to have a super hard cock. You know what I mean?
Why?
Why? Because an old man, you want him to be, got a pipe going, a newspaper, the dog at his feet there.
Well, that, in some corners, is considered pipe.
Oh. But now they're going to have to create some goddamn pill that makes women aroused at the sight of a fucking 70-year-old dude with a super hard cock. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. This is Viagra. It's insane. And you know what it's for? Impotent people. All right, it's for impotent guys. So get this. I read this. The pill can make your cock hard for 4 hours.
Right.
So now, who has the 4-hour hard cock? The impotent guys. The rest of us are fucked. Me and you got our regular cocks. Meanwhile, fucking Spade is, you know.
Defer to Spade.
Oh, man. I didn't see it.
I didn't see it coming.
Dude, I know you didn't. He brought it all around and then a vicious rip kick into his best friend's gut.
Once there's too much cock talk, I try to just zone out for a minute till it goes back the other way.
If there's too much cock talk, this guy has fevered nightmares all night. Dreams, I mean, like sweaty, fevered dreams from the cock talk that's been all over his head.
Why bury me twice? He's killing me.
No, he's a good man.
That erased it. All right.
No, he's a good man.
Who cares?
After all that, that's the whiteout he puts on.
Yeah, I know, it's awful.
After he talks about you doing chin-ups on cock for 18 minutes. No, he's a good guy.
If you're gay, he's a completely straight guy. He gets a lot of ladies. You know that about him with the ladies.
Don't say ladies.
Women, girls.
Okay, thank you. Ladies, what are we, fucking on an FM station here?
He's Don Cornelius.
But these gay guys, man, I was reading, you know about
These gay guys.
I haven't even said hi yet.
In his book, O.J. Simpson says that he would have taken a bullet or stood in front of a train for Nicole. Man, I'm going to tell you, that is some bad luck when the one guy who would have died for you kills you. That's probably... You don't get worse luck than that.
The next time I watch a WNBA game will be the first time I watch a WNBA game. Hey, WNBA, I got an idea that'll sell some tickets. Shirts and skins. But we got a lot of power here, a lot of juice. Mr. Rule Arledge is here, of course, the chairman of ABC News, you know, and a lot of crazy stories coming out of that division, you know. You know, stories about this person sleeping with that person and all that, you know. Scandal after scandal. Have you heard the latest? I heard this just the other day. There's a rumor that last week, a certain, I don't want to say who it is, a certain gentleman in ABC News, he went to a party and he got really drunk and he ended up having sex with his own wife. I don't know. I don't know how these rumors get started, but you know, it's probably just a vicious rumor, really, you know. But as Mr. Arledge knows, of course, TV has become a very tough game. You got to stay competitive, you know. As we all know, ABC's Good Morning America is in a little turmoil, you know, a little trouble, a little rating trouble. And they're considering a lot of ways now, you know, to boost the ratings. And I don't know, I think they're getting a little desperate. I heard that next week Charles Gibson will announce he's a lesbian. I mean, is that going to help anything? Nobody wants to hear that. Martha Stewart is here, and she wanted me to tell you, don't let the busboys clear your table off tonight, because a little later Martha will come up here, and she's going to show us how to take those old discarded fish bones and make a beautiful birdhouse. So... That's nice.
How do you figure out how much to share about what goes on behind the scenes at SNL? Because I know that you were talking about Eddie not doing Bill Cosby on Howard Stern's show, and Seth Meyers wasn't crazy about that. He came out about the Ellen and said, I wouldn't have told that story.
Seth Meyers said that?
Yeah, he said, do we have the quote here? Just bring up the quote. He said, I wouldn't have told it. I feel the same way. I think when you're at SNL, you're seeing so many different things behind the scenes. There are often things to give away that are yours to give away. Norm played it in a way that is very Norm MacDonald. And he went on to praise you, but I don't know what that means. I mean, how do you choose what to reveal and what not to reveal, what to share and what not to share about an institution as powerful as this?
I always think, what would Seth Meyers do? It's ridiculous.
Do you have like a necklace or something with a WWSMD on it? And whenever you're in a pickle, just hold that. And what would Seth do?
Yeah, because, if you really want to be really funny, then that's what you want to do. You want to think, what would make Seth Meyers laugh? That's how I live my life.
What do you think of his show?
Of what show?
The Seth Meyers show.
It's not something I would do.
I was a little late here tonight. I took a cab to the theater, folks. And I don't know if you've ever been in these New York City cabs, but I got one of those cabbies, couldn't speak English, Saw his name there on the dash. I couldn't even pronounce it. I think it was something like Hideki or Rabu. I'm like that. Rabu's been having some trouble, man. They fired his translator. Steinbrenner fired his translator. And people see that as cruel, but I don't know, I mean, if you're not doing well in Yankee Stadium, do you really need a translator? Do you want that, Hey, what'd they say? They say you suck. You should go back to Japan, you dirty foreigner. Okay, I got it. I'm trying to pitch over here.
You like George Bush, don't you?
I love George Bush, man. He's a good man, decent. None of this. He's not a liar, a crook, murderer, or anything like that. So it'd be good to get I think we should get the homicide out of the White House and get like a fresh start, because we don't want any more murderers.
I think we should just go on to the next question.
Who are the murderers?
Yeah.
Oh, Clinton, he murdered a guy.
Yeah, we're not allowed to. You're not allowed to put out no accusations without.
That's a little too far.
That's the way it does work.
Let's just go on to the next question.
Yeah.
This is not my week. What can I tell you?
Oh, it's not mine either, and I'm being very nice. Okay. Be a good boy. Now, Norm.
Do you never hear that?
No. Listen,
Norm,
we don't need
I don't
to
want
talk
to get
about
into
that.
this, and I don't want to hear it, and this is not the place to make those accusations, and you're supposed to be funny. Let's get on to the next question. So get with it.
There you go.
This is a live show.
Now,
Why?
Norm, but you have been properly chastised by Barbara, so I'm now going to ask the next question.
I thought it was a matter of record.
Shut up. Shut up. Look,
Okay.
let me do this, okay?
I'll tell you what's a matter of record. You will not be invited back if you don't shut up. All right, now.
So, Jenny, what month was your issue?
Quoting Churchill.
May of 08. Who was on the cover? Do you remember?
It was a Russian girl. And my nickname's Genocide, so I think that was kind of funny.
What?
What? What do you mean?
Is Genocide giving her comedy fucking advice?
Why is that? It's funny because there was a genocide
in Russia.
Only about 70 years ago.
Against the Russian people.
Who still lives? But me. That's not a
You
genocide.
first. Check her back. No, it wasn't a complete genocide.
What do you mean?
No, it was.
Well, Stalin was a mass murderer.
Only Jewish people seem to get really offended by my nickname.
There are fives in a case.
Dave's getting more.
Right.
Well,
because they're the only ones that.
Well, the only true genocide was the. Well,
Sam, another one this way, Sam.
That was a true genocide.
Wow. What?
The American Indians was a true genocide.
No, that was for land.
No, that was justified.
That was for land. We were taking their property.
No,
it doesn't matter. What does it matter what the motive?
No, the genocide.
Yeah, the motive is to just hatred of a race to exterminate them without a political or economic agenda.
What we did with the Indians.
Well, it's not justifiable.
No, well, who's saying it's justified?
I said it. Well, let's
just got to bury them.
I'm just wondering how it's justified.
Point counterpoint.
You've never heard the legal term justifiable genocide? Hitler was out of his mind at the time. Clearly insane.
I'm trying to take another opinion so we can have some friction here. It's a television show, honey. I can't agree with everything you say.
This guy fancies himself a modern-day Bill Maher.
Thank you for the dumb opinion.
And I got a question for Donald.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Where do you get your comic material? Is it through your imagination or real life situations that's happened?
That's an excellent question.
It is. It's a good one. It's almost like what inspired you to ask that question, sir?
Well, I kind of think myself as being a comic as well. If you need some material, I can give you some right now.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, man.
Yeah, let's hear a joke here.
Well, it's not necessarily a joke, but have you noticed that it's always illegal to spit on the sidewalk? But as long as you're with your woman, it's okay to cock a loogie in her crotch. I'm thinking the cheap bastards should go buy some lubricant or something.
Yeah. It's like
wrong here?
punk rock of comedy.
Well, that's awesome, man.
That's great.
That's good.
That's
Thanks.
a new way to approach comedy. It's a.
You want to play a little something on the piano real quick?
Well, Tom, right now it's not powered up because I got an outlet situation.
Oh, okay.
Going.
All right.
I got some pre-recorded material.
Okay. That's all right. Power it up next time.
He could have a whole act like that.
Wow.
He could. I swear to God, he could craft an entire act like that. You know, why is it okay to throw your gum? Why is it bad if you throw your gum on the street, but it's all right if you rape a lady? It's like the premise is crazy. It's not all right to spit in a lady's vagina.
We're joined by the talented trio called the Lonely Island.
Yeah,
who
you know
will be
what I
on the
call
big.
them?
What do you call them?
I call them Sandberg and the other couple of fellas.
The Mind Squad
The
is
other
how Rolling Stone put it.
The other two, Akiva and Yorma. Thank you guys for joining us. Andy.
Thanks for knowing our names.
Yeah, no, I read the card. You guys ever been to a thing like this? No. What do you think?
Nothing like this.
It feels so pro and real. Am I on TV? Am I on the internet?
We don't know.
Oh, you're on the computer.
You're on a velvet couch. You're on a maroon velvet couch in the beating hot sun.
Hey, can I ask a serious question? I mean, fuck all these jokes. When you name yourselves, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever have fucking moments of regret later because it's permanent, almost like a tattoo?
Absolutely. Yeah, The Lonely Island, I was outvoted.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
What were the other runner-up names?
Our first album was called Incredibad, and I wanted that to be the name of the band. But
we would have had regrets about that too, though.
Probably.
Let's be honest.
There's no winning when you're a comedy troupe.
Right.
Does that happen a lot?
It all sucks.
You're a troop.
Who comes up with the ideas, or do you guys fight a lot over ideas, or how does that work?
It's a democratic process.
Yeah.
2 out of 3 always
Two out of three wins. Yeah.
Who's always getting left out?
Someone's always mad. It's whoever's not in town.
Got it.
How do you guys feel in your bodies? Do you feel healthy and strong?
Absolutely not.
I could be eating better.
Yeah.
Yeah, digestion could be going better.
Yeah. I feel like that about
Hey,
myself.
enough of these fucking jokes. Can I ask one more serious question?
Hit me with a real one, Norm.
A real one.
Sandberg, when you went to SNL,
Yeah.
you went different than anybody else because you were already a fucking big hit, right?
I don't think so. Is that true?
We were definitely not a big hit. No.
Oh, Saturday Night Live made you guys a big hit?
Yeah, I mean, we had a small internet following.
Oh, so the computer doesn't really work to make you a big hit?
I mean, that was like 17 years ago, right? How long ago was that? It was a while ago. It's changed now.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you started Incredibad
/ The Lonely Island.
Yeah, The Lonely Island. What's the significance of that name, though? That's what really I wanted to ask. The Lonely Island. You think of all islands as kind of lonely.
Do you really want to hear the story?
Yes, please.
I do
We could do a
too.
real short version, which is just basically, it was what we called the apartment we lived on Olympic with all the traffic. It was a sarcastic name
from a sarcastic Tennessee Williams style sketch we did about the apartment.
Akiva wrote a one-act play.
God damn, I wish I had a time machine.
To see that action.
Yeah, no, to take back my question.
Thought you were going to say to murder Hitler.
I would not. You know, people always fucking want to murder Hitler with their time machine, right? But then I feel if I got back there, I'd be afraid of falling under the spell of his fucking beautiful eyes.
It's true.
And oratory, and
he
then
locked in the gaze.
Yeah, and then I join the fucking party,
That's
knowing
his
me.
thing. He gives you his full attention. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe there's
Norm,
something to this guy.
Norman, before you ask another serious
Believe
question,
it or not,
we
they're
gotta move
telling
on.
us to wrap it up. I don't exactly know why you guys.
This was fun for everyone.
It's the
For the
Lonely
record,
Island, guys.
I would have killed Hitler. So thanks, gentlemen.
Can I just clarify? if I did go back in time to kill Hitler, I would do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't get lost in
that's
his
the front
eyes
door
and then
choice.
bail.
Yeah.
Just so I don't get like
thanks for
hit
having
from
us.
all the like
I know, all the-
defamation
Yeah,
leads.
no, you would end it. Yeah.
Pro.
Listen,
Okay.
man, I'm sorry about.
We gotta wrap it up.
I'm sorry
It's
about
over.
bringing up Hitler.
You really brought this live show to a new
This is
level.
the first one, right? This is your first interview?
It's just gonna get worse.
This is the first time I've ever interviewed a
Just
man.
sign
If you can
things
bring
to
Hitler
come.
into all of them, they're going to ask you back for sure, which is I know what you want.
That's what we're all hoping for.
Okay, tell him to go now.
You know, with Hitler, the more I learn about that guy, the more I don't care for him. I can't. And there's nothing redeeming about the guy. I tell the guys, I go, how on earth could these Germans follow this lunatic, you know? And they're like, oh, he was an incredible public speaker, you know? He could hypnotize you with his public speaking. And then I see him, he's like, strangely, correctly, strangely. I go, what? That's not my idea of a silver-tongued devil, you know?
Tell me what it is with these gay guys.
I know, I'm already.
I just read this thing about the George
You're reading
Michael.
a lot, aren't you?
Yeah, I got a little time off. Now I read the newspaper. And this really strikes me about the gay community. I don't know if they're a community, but
It's called West Hollywood.
yeah, they're gay, and it's, you know, George Michaels. He hangs around the bathroom. He has sex with multiple guys. This is
No way. You got to get it right. Hangs around the bathroom, and it was described as a lewd behavior, but I don't remember sex with numerous guys.
Well,
is that what you took away from it?
What does he do?
What were you, in the next stall?
I could have been just having a nice bathroom regular thing.
I don't know what lewd behavior is, but I don't know that he was in there with numerous guys. But anyway, go ahead. We get the gist of it.
This is definitely a gay thing, because this is a pop superstar. You know what I mean? You're not going to walk into a bathroom and all of a sudden Farrah Fawcett's like, you know? You're not going to...
What? I love it.
What I'm saying is, why would a famous
what was she doing? What was that, some sort of cervical belt sander thing, or what was that? Oh, Christ, what are you, Linda Blair?
They do. That's what they do, right?
That's what ladies that I know do. But
good to know that primetime exposure's paying dividends there.
But I think that's what it is. It's that the gay, that's why they have separate bathrooms. Let's face it. If they had women and, women, as you call them, I call them ladies. If you had them in the same bathroom,
like Ally McBeal.
Like you go in the bathroom to do your business, see a man about a dog there, you know, and you're in the bathroom. You're in the bathroom. All of a sudden, a beautiful lady comes out. Oh, here's my vagina and breasts. You're going to be hanging out at that bathroom a lot. So I don't blame anybody for anything.
It was revealed today that O.J. Simpson told police that Nicole Brown Simpson used to beat him up. He also claimed that she and Ron Goldman killed him. O.J. Simpson's lawyers have decided to skip hearings on DNA evidence and go right to trial. Asked why they did this, the lawyers replied, "We want to get O.J. acquitted as speedily as possible so he can get back to doing what he does best, killing people."
Oh, I have an announcement to read. I almost forgot I was supposed to. I was told to make this announcement. Table 10, wherever you are, table 10, we're sorry your waitress hasn't been there in a while. Larry King just married her. So... So... I have to say, though, you know, this is an incredible thing for me. You know, I'm just a punk, you know, and yet here I am, you know, I can't believe I'm speaking in a room. I'm standing in a room here with the most powerful man in the country, Alan Greenspan, you know, and it's a little amazing to me. It's a little, you know. Of course, that's the big story in here in Washington is the recent marriage between NBC's Andrea Mitchell and Alan Greenspan, who is 71 years old. And this is sweet, you know, I didn't know this. They wrote their own vows, you know. She promised to love, honor, and speak into his good ear. So that was it's kind of sweet, you know.
Chris is a great guy, but he used to bring around women all the time to the show, you know. Big, tall women, you know. Big bruisers, you know. And he'd say, look, I'm heterosexual. I mean, he wouldn't say that out loud, but that's what that would be the caption on the picture in the New Yorker. Boy, those are funny.
So it was something related to his sexuality.
Maybe. But listen, if I call a person gay, that ain't no insult.
It's a good thing nowadays.
Yeah, if you say it's an insult, you're the homophobe, not me.
Correct. Supreme Court says so.
That's absolutely.
I consider Amy Schumer the funniest person on the planet. If you take me out of the equation.
No, I meant me.
Oh, that's why you were coughing?
That's why I was clearing my throat, yeah. Not you.
I thought you were clearing your throat for me.
No.
Taking you out of the equation.
Yeah.
But you're funny in a different way.
Yeah,
you know?
thank you, buddy.
In a brilliant move during closing arguments, Simpson attorney Johnny Cochran put on the knit cap prosecutors say O.J. wore the night he committed the murders. Although O.J. may have hurt his case when he suddenly blurted out, hey, easy with that. That's my lucky stabbing hat.
Norm MacDonald was the funniest man to ever live. That's something they could never take away from him.
Unless you kill your wife and a waiter, in which case...
Alright, that's enough. Throughout Norm's long and distinguished comedy career, we only ever got 2-hour-long stand-up comedy specials, one called Me Doing Stand-Up, and the other, Hitler's Dog, Gossip and Trickery. Today we will be reviewing the latter and taking a closer look at Norm's Netflix comedy special, Hitler's Dog, and I'll be sharing my thoughts on it and whether or not I think it's good, bad, or somewhere in between. That being said, it is a Norm MacDonald special, so I think a lot of you already know where this one is going. So if all of that sounds interesting to you, then let's hop right into it. To begin with, I hadn't watched this special in a really long time, and rewatching it several years later, it actually surprised me a lot. I used to think that Me Doing Stand-Up was the clear winner between the two, but Hitler's Dog has a lot of classic bits that are just so simple and unique, while also being brilliantly grim and deep. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and hop into the content of the special. The special begins with a shot of Norm walking through a park on a sidewalk, and while we see this nice B-roll footage, we hear Norm deliver the punchline to his classic bit about Bill Cosby being a hypocrite.
God damn, at least he's not a hypocrite. That's the worst. That's the worst part of it.
This is almost a subtle nod to Norm's diehard fans because he didn't even have to include the setup of the joke in there because Norm knows that we already know it. It's a great bit to start the special on, and then we see Norm transition into a bit about eating a pork chop and differences that exist when we eat at home versus when we eat at a restaurant. This is a bit we have seen on Letterman before, but it's nice to see the extended version of it in the special where it eventually goes into the way waiters talk to you when you're ordering dessert. Very funny stuff. One thing I noticed early in this hour and really appreciated appreciated about Norm's stand-up bits is how he takes his word choice into very careful consideration when doing the bits. It's apparent that Norm has worked very hard to select the funniest possible words for his audience. You guys might be thinking I'm overanalyzing this, and you may be right, but let me cook for a second. A lot of the words Norm uses have much harder consonants than other words.
Say, man, I'm gonna make myself a pork chop, cook it up till it's hot on one side, then turn it over, hot on the other side, cook it, and then cut into it a little bit, see how it's going in the middle. Guy comes, he's got a big tray, he had a canted angle, every confection known to man. Sure. Suddenly, his tone changes. It's not like the pork chop anymore. Some kind of sexual undertones going on.
A lot of comedians have talked about how words with the p, t, or k sound are funnier than words without them. Gary Goldman has even tweeted about this in his Comedy Tips series about how there's something prehistoric in our brains that make us laugh when we hear a certain sound or certain words. Norm definitely seems aware of this throughout the entire special, and he does not disappoint. The jokes themselves are super funny, don't get me wrong, but when you also use the funniest words when constructing the jokes, and you own a doghouse, there's just no way the audience isn't gonna love you. Anyway, let's get back into the content of the special. Norm's bit about the desserts at the restaurant gets really silly, and we get one of my favorite Normisms when he does the
You like this?
This will always crack me the fuck up no matter what context it's in. Then we see Norm do a silly bit about sex and how it's not interesting to him anymore, which then naturally transitions right into this bit about Abraham Lincoln saying score in George Washington's famous story about chopping down a cherry tree. The greater point of the joke ends up having nothing to do with George Washington at all, rather how fucking mortifying it would be if you were incapable of telling anybody a lie. You can genuinely hear in Norm's voice how troubling this topic is to him, and it ends up being a great little non sequitur. I really like these jokes. Bits like this and other ones we will get into lead me to believe that only Norm could pull them off. If Norm was in a writer's room and gave this to even the most elite comedians working today like Joe Rogan, Brendan Schaub, or Bert Kreischer, I really think they would struggle to make these jokes as funny as Norm. Okay, that was a joke, but seriously, Norm has this habit of lingering on jokes for a while and not being as concise as he could be, but it works especially well for him and his style. In fact, it's what a lot of people love him for, is his irreverence towards the rules of brevity. This isn't to say Norm can't have great one-liners. He does. Everyone who has watched him for a while knows he can come up with great lines on the spot as well. It's just that he finds a way to stretch these bits, waste your time, but make you happy while he's doing it. Once Norm has the skeleton of the joke compartmentalized, he just plays around with it, and he's so naturally funny that this really works in his favor. That's why I think most comedians working today, even if they were high-level comics, could not pull off what Norm does. Another thing Norm does tremendously well in his stand-up is cloaking his segues and really making it seem like a big, long stream of consciousness.
There's a real stream of consciousness thing happening here, Norm.
Yeah, it's called conversation.
Well, I guess it's more of a conversation, really. But Norm exemplifies high-level segues, making the entire specially incredibly easy to watch. Then we see a few jokes about why Norm doesn't like to go to parties because he feels like he's too dumb and doesn't have any strong opinions to tell anybody about, which is rich when you consider the fact that he graduated from high school at like 14 years old and was enrolled in university around 15 or 16 years old. I really like this joke about the triangular Cuban sandwiches because it really does remind me of how good these fucking sandwiches are for some reason. My family around the holiday season always buys these Cubans from a local sandwich shop, and good God almighty are they delicious. Norm is definitely onto something with this one. Moving on, several bits from this special we had seen in Norm's last Letterman set, or just a Letterman interview in general, like the next one we saw about him doing LSD and being disappointed that he didn't have a flashback like he was promised by his drug dealer. I think Bill Maher would be very proud of Norm for taking a stand against the big acid companies and voicing his issues with them on a billion-dollar platform like Netflix. Very cool of Norm to pretend to be a smart guy like Bill for this one joke. By this point in the special, we are about a quarter of the way through, and already I'm flabbergasted by how funny the special is. I really took it for granted the first time I watched it, but upon rewatching, I'm realizing just how clever, simple, but unique all of Norm's premises are. Furthermore, we would then see Norm get into this monstrosity of a bit that starts off with him talking to a vegetarian and realizing he's wrong morally, but this quickly escalates into his belief that if you woke up one day and realized you were wrong about everything, that you should hang yourself. He also has a throwaway observation that's so cartoonishly stupid you can't help help but laugh your ass off. Norm says it's no coincidence that the rope store and the rickety stool store are always built right next to each other. Just a completely fake observation. This is one small detail that is a cherry on top of such an excellently written bit. Then we see Norm make a salient point about how a lot of people question the motive of people who commit suicide and pretend like they don't understand it, even though the reason why they're doing it appears to most people as glaringly obvious.
People commit suicide. People go, I don't understand why. And I go, you don't? Where, you live in a cotton candy house or something? What the fuck? You don't know about life? How it only disappoints and gets worse and worse until it ends in a catastrophe? What the fuck?
This is so twisted and morbid, but absolutely side-splitting. Then Norm takes it into a bit about autoerotic asphyxiation, which ends up being great. As aforementioned, the escalation from veganism into this bit about autoerotic asphyxiation is so gradual and natural that you really don't even notice it happening right before your eyes. Incredibly well done. A lot of people think Norm is funny, but really don't give his stand-up the respect it deserves. This is why I believe that George Carlin notably praised Norm in the 90s for his stand-up comedy, and Norm's ability to deliver this left-field style of observational comedy consistently throughout his act. Even if you don't think George was the funniest comedian in the latter half of his career, the dude knew what he was talking about when it came to praising funny people and giving them their flowers. Right after this bit about suicide, Norm follows it up with this dark but silly bit about what happens directly after you died. The delivery of this absurd joke all the way to the end is world-class and vintage Norm MacDonald. Then we see several more bits about suicide that are all pretty funny, and then this transitions nicely into Norm's bit about Las Vegas and the classic saying of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This is one we've seen Norm do for years, and he really expands on it in a way that he didn't initially on Late Show with David Letterman. There's an extra funny punchline that he obviously could not have said on TV, and it's a great incentive to watch the special if you haven't already. As much as I love the bit from the special though, it really doesn't feel the same without David Letterman cackling in the background.
You probably think of him as some that likes to bite the heads off of chickens, but this guy can...
Then Norm dives into the topic of smartphones and discusses the differences between taking pictures nowadays and pictures just 1 or 2 generations ago. The line, "Who's gonna feed them hogs?" lives rent-free in my head and probably always will after watching this special and Norm's last Letterman set.
Who's gonna feed the hogs?
Then we see Norm do a bit about Wikipedia, which happens to have one of the most noteworthy jokes in the entire special, in my opinion. My friend and I have talked about Norm's Claude Monet joke a lot because it's a massive subversion that you would never expect. When Norm says to his friend he's going to the bathroom to look at Claude Monet and he comes back after a half hour of looking and he just says he liked his paintings, that's fucking wild. He doesn't go any deeper than this, and the guy asking Norm about him fucking believes it. Most misdirection jokes are relatively simple, but Norm took this one so much further than necessary just because he felt like it. Fucking legend. Then Norm discusses the nature of fame and how it has changed by comparing the first people to go on the moon to Instagram booty models. And then Norm highlights the absurdity of what happened with the first spaceship to the moon and how Harrison Schmitt was not allowed to even leave the lunar capsule. Then we get to probably my favorite joke of the entire special when Norm talks about metaphors and how he appreciates metaphors where they are figuratively true while also being literally true. Incredibly grim, but so fucking funny, dude. I love this joke because of its simplicity, as well as Norm giving his sincere thoughts on what makes somebody beautiful. That was a nice touch. Then we see several more jokes about leading causes of death in America, teachers being the real heroes, and how the best time in Norm's life was the time before school when it was just pure and blissful. Then we hear Norm's classic bit about how the only country he's scared of is Germany on account of them declaring war on the world, and after this we hear the joke about the $6 million man. I will say this was the only bit that didn't strongly resonate with me. It definitely isn't Norm's fault he lost me. It's just because I'm not super well read on the content of the show and the commercial. He also talks about a few other commercials, the reverse mortgage, and then the 10 commandments of the scriptures, and then Norm ends the special with his bit that the title is referencing about Hitler's dog and how a dog's love is so pure and unconditional that even a man as evil as Hitler could be loved by one. A great closing bit for the special. All in all, I think for Norm's last comedy special released while he was still alive, this was an absolute heater. I think of the two, I still prefer me doing stand-up, but if it was a roll of the dice which comedy special I ended up watching, I would be just fine with either of these. I don't watch watch as many comedy specials anymore, but I'm happy I rewatched this one to make this video. I think Hitler's Dog is a deep look into the topics of Norm's mind while he was battling cancer, with a beautiful cocktail of grimness, self-reflection, sincerity, and of course, humor. If you haven't seen the special, I'd recommend giving it a watch. If you're a fan of Norm, then you'd love it, and if you're not a super big fan of Norm, I think Hitler's Dog might change your mind on how good Norm is. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and hype the video to help more people see it, and comment your thoughts on this special down below. If you want more content from me, click the link on your screen to check out my last video where I compiled 30 minutes of Norm Macdonald brutally roasting people throughout his entire career. I know you'll love the video, so click the link to check that out now. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and God bless. After his departure from Saturday Night Live, Norm Macdonald would go on to star in his very own sitcom titled The Norm Show.
I played Norm.
Even though Norm's fan base loved this show and the ratings started off strong, the network eventually made some horrible decisions with the show's scheduling, which eventually led to this great show dipping in ratings and being completely canceled. In today's video, we will be talking about Norm Macdonald's sitcom The Norm Show, where he played Norm, and how ABC's reckless handling of the show's scheduling led to the demise of an underrated sitcom starring our favorite chunk of coal. So if all of that sounds interesting, then get cozy and let's hop right into it. To begin with, let's establish a quick timeline of events that we can follow. The year is 1997, and Norm Macdonald has just been fired alongside head writer Jim Downey from Saturday Night Live. We would then see Norm host the ESPYs shortly thereafter, then star in his own hit movie titled Dirty Work, and then the year after, on March 24th, 1999, TV producer Bruce Helfert would collaborate with Norm Macdonald to ride his growing fame and create his very own sitcom titled The Norm Show. The show would shorten the name in September 1999 to Norm, 2 years before that horrible tragedy where all the stories came crashing down.
All the stories came crashing down, you know. A lot like when we tried to write on The Norm Show.
This was a preemptive decision to prevent any potential legal disputes. Anyway, let's take a minute or two to talk about the general storyline of The Norm Show. Norm's sitcom revolved around him as the main character named Norm Henderson, who is a professional hockey player who was banned indefinitely from the NHL for gambling and tax evasion. Norm, being the acting connoisseur that he is, method acted this role for many years by gambling and losing all of his money frequently before he even got the sitcom, just so he could really nail the role when he acted. Which just proves my new theory. Richard Simmons is gay. Alright, I'll lay off, goddammit. Moving on, Norm would have a formidable comedic cast behind him, consisting of Laurie, who was played by Laurie Metcalf, Danny, who was played by Ian Gomez, Taylor, who was played by Nikki Cox, and in the second season we got to see Artie, who was played by Chris Farley. Wait, that's not Chris Farley, that's just some other fat guy. The plot would essentially just follow around Norm and all of his shenanigans at the office. A key detail of the show is that Norm had been assigned this job as community service for 5 years, which was the only thing standing between him and significant prison time, given all of his gambling legal troubles. Laurie and Danny are Norm's friends from the office who try to steer him away from his office rebel antics as much as possible, while their boss is Anthony Curtis, who constantly takes a much more direct approach to steer Norm away from being a degenerate. Thankfully for us, his efforts are futile, and we get to see Norm wreaking havoc in typical fashion. Nikki Cox, being a stunning young smoke show, plays Taylor, who, just in case you weren't aware.
Look, Taylor, I don't think you understand. You're a huge whore.
Now that we have a general idea of what Norm's sitcom was like, how was it received by ABC's television audience? Well, as goofy as it sounds, it was really good until it wasn't. What do I mean by that? When The Norm Show first went on the air, it had a pretty elite time slot on Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. It also preceded The Drew Carey Show, which was a fairly well-retarded sitcom, so the show being well-received by audiences was essentially a layup for The Norm Show. Not to mention that anybody tuning into a sitcom about Norm Macdonald filled with his style of humor, of course they were going to love it. The sitcom was essentially geared just for die-hard Norm Macdonald fans who wanted to consistently hear him rip on prostitutes and do his famous
You like this?
All things considered, the show was set up perfectly to succeed, and it did. The Norm Show in its first season was one of the most highly rated sitcoms on ABC among adults aged 18 to 49. And according to the Nielsen Media Research's cumulative viewer ratings for TV programs, The Norm Show was rated an 8.1 out of 13, which was pretty damn good. It was also ranked 46th out of 175 shows that were also on the rankings. It was crystal clear that even after Norm's time on Saturday Night Live, the people still wanted more from him, and they were going to get it. So upon seeing amazing results for the show from ABC's key demographics, you would think they would do the exact same thing and not start to enact bullshit changes, right? Well, you would be wrong. In season 2, we would start to see ABC experiment and shuffle around the time slot of the Norm show, which would begin to create confusion and inconsistency amongst regular viewers of the show. According to Pop Matters' article on the Norm show, during the second season, the show remained on Wednesday night, but they shifted the time slot 1 hour earlier, so it played now at 8:30 p.m. instead of 9:30 p.m. ABC did this for episodes 1 through 7 of season 2. Fair enough, ABC wanted to try a different show for the 9:30 p.m. time slot, so they moved the Norm show around. Not a big deal, right? But then a few months go by, and they move it back to 9:30 p.m. once again for episodes 8 through 13. So the experimental time change must have proved to be ineffective initially, and they decided to revert back to the timing format that will allow the show to be as successful as it was in season 1. Great, now all ABC has to do is stay right there. But no, because nothing makes sense in this fucking world, they decide once again to move the time slot an hour earlier for the second time.
The second time.
The second time.
For episodes 14 through 20 to wrap up the season. This would mark the third time that the show's time slot had shifted during season 2, which really threw the audiences for a loop. What's remarkable though is despite the time slot instability presented by ABC, the Norm show would be rated a 7.8 out of 13 on the Nielsen Media Research cumulative viewer ratings for TV programs, which was not a massive decrease from the ratings of the first season. In fact, the show was still ranked 48th out of 175 shows that were rated, which meant it was still in the top third of TV shows overall. So even with the ridiculous amount of hurdles and obstacles presented through the volatility of the show's time slot, the fans of the Norm show still found a way to watch the show and enjoy it. However, the third season is when things really started to come crashing down. Aside from the constant time changes of when the show would air, ABC would decide to move the Norm show from Wednesday nights after the Drew Carey show to Friday nights. This was a huge screw up because the Friday night time slot on TV in general is often considered the Friday night death slot, given a Friday's show's likelihood to be canceled due to low ratings. Fridays are often nights when people go out and do shit instead of staying in and watching television, given most people's work schedules. So this was a death sentence to most shows unless your lead actor was Charlie Sheen or Jerry Seinfeld. The worst part was, there wasn't even an announcement ahead of time that this was taking place. ABC actually aired the very first episode of season 3 on Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. just like normal, but then the next week they pivoted the rest of the season to goddamn Friday night. Episodes 2 to 11 would air Friday night at 9 p.m., then we would see even more time changes for no reason at all. Episodes 12 through 14 would go back to 9:30 p.m., and then episodes 15 through 24 would shift forward again to 8:30 p.m. for no good reason at all. All of these time slot changes and moving the show to a Friday night was just an absolute nightmare, and the quality of the episodes would follow suit as well, and they would noticeably start to decrease in quality in season 3. True fans still enjoyed the show for what it was, but all of these factors, many of which were introduced by ABC, really put the show into a downward spiral. When the 2000 to 2001 Nielsen ratings came out, the Norm show had tumbled drastically down to a 4.3 out of 13 rating, which knocked it down to a ranking as well of 109 out of 175 TV shows on the air that year. The low ratings mixed with the dramatic time slot changes brought the Norm show to its knees in April 2001 when the season ended and ABC decided to cancel it, which perfectly solidified the trend of shows getting the Friday night death slot and then perishing shortly thereafter. When it comes to critical reception, the show had a pretty eclectic range of reviews. Norm MacDonald's sitcom often had a dry and sardonic style to it that people either really loved or really hated, or they thought it was just okay. But seriously, similar to Weekend Update, people either loved Norm's styles or just didn't really care for it. To refer back to an article from earlier, Pop Matters talked about how the Norm show was cynical but not mean. I mean, yeah, in the show Norm Henderson is a degenerate gambler who loves making fun of Taylor for being a huge whore, but if you watch Dirty Work, he did the same thing. So if you really watched Norm's work up until this point, you knew what you were getting from the sitcom. Sure, Lori, Danny, and Artie might have been underutilized at some points, but they're really just there to highlight what people already find hilarious about Norm and his antics, while being supporting roles along the way. All the criticism of the show dipping in quality during season 3 is pretty fair though. Even diehard Norm fans were disappointed by it. Ultimately, the show had its own problems, but ABC made sure the show was dead in the water by giving it every available obstacle to fail. Some fun pieces of lore I enjoyed from the Norm show though were the cameos from Richard Pryor in season 3 as Mr. Johnson.
But I'm going to give you a number that you can call. What the hell was that?
Win.
Win?
as well as Jack Warden playing Danny's father in season 1.
Nami. Hockey, Nami. Hockey, Nami.
These were some cool cameos I recall loving when I watched the Norm show for myself. All in all, ABC just had to try and tighten their grip on the show and move it around to different time slots and different days. That skewered Norm's sitcom, and by the 3rd season it seemed like everybody had just had enough altogether, so the show went off the air in 2001, making this the saddest thing to ever take place in the year 2001. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you enjoyed me breaking down how ABC killed the Norm show, please make sure to leave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Also hype the video to help more people see it, and if you want more content from me, click the link on your screen to check this video out where I compile some of my favorite Norm Macdonald moments of all time. Click the link to watch that now. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and as always, God bless. What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be taking Norm Macdonald comedy lore moments and ranking them on a tier list. I'm obviously going to be very biased in this, but let's go ahead and hop right into it. I think this one will be fun. The first thing we have is Norm ruining the big live YouTube comedy event, and if you haven't seen this, oh my god, you're missing out on one of the funniest things ever posted on YouTube. It's called like Live on the YouTube Red Carpet or something. I can't remember the exact name, but Norm just goes in there with the mission of absolutely sinking this event. Kasim is dressed in a suit, Jenny is dressed in kind of like a nice dress, and then Norm is wearing sweatpants and a hoodie in like the California heat in Pasadena, and he's just sweating his ass off, just absolutely lighting up Kasim, and just making fun of all the people in the event.
All the stars are here.
It's true.
Beardy Man, Claude Racine, Dax Flame.
They're saying like it's the biggest event on the internet, and meanwhile he's like, I don't know who any of these people are. This is just like a certified legendary Norm Macdonald moment. It's probably gonna have to go in A tier for me. And I know you guys are like, dude, this is obviously S tier. And you know, I know I'm a professional Norm Macdonald glazer, but like in this one I'm really gonna try and put the absolute best things in here that I think deserve to go in S tier. But this one is solid. It's a classic moment. If you haven't seen it, you gotta go watch it. The next thing we have is Norm stealing comedians' material before they would go on stage. This was a story that I heard someone tell where I guess there were these open micers who were doing 8 to 10 minute spots, and they were doing a corporate gig and Norm was the headliner. I guess what Norm did is he told them, I'm gonna go warm up the crowd, you guys just watch and learn and get ready to do your sets. Meanwhile, Norm goes up and when he's on stage warming up the crowd, he's just stealing all of their material and ripping it from their grasp. So the novelty is disappeared, and a lot of the comedians would go up and try to do like crowd work and stuff, and it would just bomb, you know, because they're like newer comics and they're still kind of figuring out what they're doing. So Norm is just sabotaging these younger comics, and then he goes up again after they all bomb horribly, and he just steals the show again. And you know, they were talking about like, oh, Norm's jokes were better, but this was just such a funny thing to do, and it's funny for us. Like, we can privately laugh at this, but this is kind of a fucked up thing to do to a comedian. I'm gonna go ahead and say this is probably C tier, just because, you know, this is kind of a mean thing to do, especially to people who are new at comedy. You're just kind of traumatizing them, and I know that, like, you know, you gotta have thick skin to do stand-up, but it's still like a pretty horrible thing to do. The next thing is hosting the 6th annual ESPY Awards. This one's gonna go up in S tier right away. This is probably one of the best hosts, might have been the best hosting of the ESPY Awards by a comedian ever. If you haven't seen it, all the roast jokes are great. Norm had just gotten fired from SNL like a few months before this happened. I believe it was in 1997. So he went up there, he was like, you know what? I'm not gonna hold back at all. I'm gonna continue making OJ jokes. He was funny the entire time for like 8 or 9 minutes, and then he closed on this great joke that everyone and their mother who knows who Norm Macdonald is has probably seen.
He became the first defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. And congratulations, Charles. That is something that no one can ever take away from you. Unless you kill your wife and a waiter, in which case...
People loved it, and people still talk about it to this day. Like Shane Gillis in the most recent ESPY Awards ceremony referenced a Norm joke. That just goes to show this is S tier, and I think it deserves to be. The next one is the time he went on The View and made the women uncomfortable talking about Bill Clinton. Once again, this is going in S tier. I know you guys are like, how can you put too many things in S tier? Guys, this is a Norm Macdonald tier list first and foremost. You know he's my favorite. Second of all, how can you not put this moment in S tier? If you haven't seen the clip, Norm Macdonald goes on The View. He's asked about George Bush, and he says, I just want to have someone who's not a murderer in the White House, referencing Bill Clinton. And then they ask, like, who was the murderer? And he immediately details that it was Clinton.
Who were the murderers?
Yeah.
Oh, Clinton, he murdered a guy.
Yeah, you know, we're not allowed to, you're not allowed to put out no accusations without That's a little too far. That's the way it does work.
Do you never hear that?
No. Listen, we don't need to talk about that.
I thought it was a matter of record.
Shut up. Shut up.
Norm could not be more comfortable and could not be having more fun. He's just smile. He has this shit-eating grin on his face, and he's just having fun making them squirm. The women of The View, they were so insufferable. He's making them very uncomfortable, and it's just so funny to watch. And this is absolutely an S-tier moment. Next on the list, we have talking to audience members after bombing. Now, this was a story that Jeff Ross told. Anytime Norm would do well at a show when he was doing comedy clubs before SNL, if he did well, they would go back in the green room and they would play poker, and he wouldn't talk to the audience. But if he bombed, he would go by the exit and talk to every single person in the audience. And that is just such a goofy ass thing to do. It's so funny because he knows it's gonna be like one more moment of discomfort for them. So he does it anyway, just for his own entertainment. And this is one of those moments that makes a lot of people kind of come to the conclusion that Norm was kind of just doing whatever he found was funny, and we were just the people who got to enjoy it. And I think that's really, really true. This is probably gonna go in B tier. This is pretty funny, but I wouldn't put it on the same level of like ruining the big live YouTube comedy event or hosting the ESPY Awards, but it's not as bad as stealing material from your opening acts. The next thing we have is more of an infamous moment of Norm Macdonald, something that I made a really cool video about that people really liked. So the lore here, if you're unfamiliar, is Norm was doing this corporate golf tournament in Iowa, and he was golfing with the governor, and they wanted to do like a corporate comedy show that was clean, that was going to raise money for charity, I believe. They basically advertised the show as like family comedy night. I think they said there was like almost 2,000 people in the audience at the University of Iowa in this big theater, and they hired Jim Brewer, Daryl Hammond, and Norm Macdonald from SNL. The reason they hired them was they needed it to be clean, and they assumed that because they're on TV, they're used to being clean. Jim Brewer goes up, does great. Daryl Hammond goes up, does great. And then Norm goes up. He's just absolutely filthy because they told him to be clean. And people are grabbing their children and leaving the event. And it's like, apparently it was estimated, I think in the newspaper, that Norm had walked 80% of the audience that had paid to see the show. The families left, the old people left, the kids dragged out by their parents. But the college kids stayed and they were loving it. They thought it was the funniest thing ever. This is something that, like, you know, there's kids in the audience and you're going up there talking about having sex with an animal. That's pretty awful, but like, it's so funny that I don't think I would put it down in C tier. I think I'm gonna put it in B tier. It's one of those things that's really funny to laugh at for comedians, but like, you know, I do understand why people had a problem with it. That being said though, it's Norm Macdonald. You can't tell the guy what to do. Like, what did you expect? Did you expect to tell him how to do comedy and he was just gonna not make you feel like an idiot for doing it? And he got paid $15,000 for the event and disinvited from the golf tournament. Like, what a funny turn of events. But that being said, still pretty messed up if we're being honest. Next thing we have on the list is borrowing $500 from Kevin Nealon and losing it all while gambling. Borrowing money from a friend and not giving it back. Like, if we're being honest, it's pretty bad. You know, the story is funny, but like, it's not a very nice thing to do that. And then he ended up losing $5,000. He made a lot of money and then lost it all anyway. And this is like a common theme with Norm. So this I'm going to go ahead and put in C tier too, because I would say it's on the same level of like, you steal a comedian's material before they go on stage. It's funny to think about, but like if it happened to you, you'd be pretty mortified and you wouldn't be happy about it. So similar to Kevin, borrowing money from a friend and then not giving it back is pretty bad. So I think C tier is fair, even though it is kind of a funny story. The next one we have is Norm winning $50K at Atlantic City Casino and then throwing it all in the ocean. A lot of people don't know if this one's true or not, and I could see why people kind of question the validity of this. As the story goes, I guess Norm was at Atlantic City in New Jersey with Artie, and, you know, he won $50,000 at the casino. But Norm, knowing that he would likely take the money to a casino and end up losing it anyway, he decided to take all that money and throw it in the ocean, which I don't know if it's true. This is one of those things that I don't think it's the funniest Norm story ever, but I think the fact that it's like a little silly, but it's not that horrible. We're going to go ahead and put this in B tier, along with talking to audience members after bombing and getting kicked out of Iowa. So that's where that's going to go. The next thing on the tier list we have is him showing up late to hang with Nick Swardson, then gaslighting him to stay longer and drink. This is a really funny story, and if we're being honest, this isn't really that bad. I think I'm going to go ahead and put this in A tier. If you don't know what the story is, Norm had asked Nick to hang out, and I think later in Norm's life, he was, you know, undergoing a lot of the cancer treatments, and as we know, he was very private about about his cancer diagnosis. The only person who knew about it, I think, was his manager, Lori Jo Hoekstra, and his mother. I think those are and maybe his son. I think those are the only people that knew about his cancer diagnosis. So he basically invited Nick to hang out and watch sports at some type of bar. I guess Nick showed up, watches like a full baseball game, drinks, watches another baseball game, drinks more, and he's like really, really hammered. And then he gets ready to leave because Norm hasn't showed up. He thought Norm just blew him off. And as he's walking out of the venue, Norm is walking into the venue. And then he gets there and he's just like, hey, Nick, I'm here. And then Nick's just like, hey, dude.
You're 8 hours late. Like, well, have a fucking beer. Why are you being weird?
It's a funny story, and it's really not that bad for Nick. I mean, yeah, he kind of flaked on him, probably showed up late because of something like that, but it's really not that bad, and it's a very funny story when you watch Nick tell it. So this is going to go in A tier. The next thing we have is chairman of the board. S tier. Immediately S tier. Like, if you guys haven't seen this clip, you're missing out on some absolute heat. This is one of the funniest moments in late night television history. It's not even close. Conan had Norm on along with Courtney Thorne-Smith. Courtney Thorne-Smith is talking about this movie she's doing with Carrot Top and talking about, you know, all the stuff she's doing. And, you know, she's just having a great time. She's young. She's beautiful. She's talking to Conan. And then, you know, Norm is just over there making a mockery out of everything she's saying, but not in a way that makes him unlikable. In a way that is funny. In a way that she finds funny, in a way that Conan is just eating up and the audience is eating up. And then eventually they get to the movie title and she says chairman of the board and Conan says, do something with that, you freak.
I bet the board is spelled B-O-R-E-D.
Just fucking hilarious. Everyone shits on the internet, and I understand the internet's the root of a lot of evil, but the internet is also the reason we get to savor beautiful moments like this. What an amazing thing. I just had to put this in S tier. How could you not? The next thing we have is trolling Chris Kattan and stealing his shoes on their flight. This is a very funny story. Norm Macdonald and Chris Kattan, when they were on SNL, got into all sorts of bickering. A lot of people were kind of up in the air as to whether or not they actually had a real beef or not. It came out that they really didn't. They were kind of just messing around with each other. Jim Breuer has a funny story about the Twilight Zone sketch. This was one of the stories where Norm and Chris would go back and forth, and apparently one time they had a red-eye flight, and Chris had his shoes stolen by Norm, and then Norm, like, basically lied and was just like, I didn't take your shoes. And then, like, I guess, like, months later, Norm was just like, yeah, I did take your shoes, by the way. Will Ferrell tells the story, Dana Carvey tells the story. I'm gonna say this goes in A tier. You know, Chris Kattan was slightly inconvenienced by this, but it's a really funny story. And the last thing we have is Norm concealing the real reason he was fired from Weekend Update. Guys, when Norm was initially fired from the show, everybody was thinking it was because of the OJ jokes. A lot of the people who asked why he was fired, he basically kind of subtly hinted at it in a comedic way, you know, the way Norm does, to the, it might have been the OJ jokes he had a problem with. And a lot of people took this as the real story for a long time. It honestly wasn't known for sure the real reason he was fired until after he died, because Jim Downey, who was the head writer of SNL for many years, went on Conan's show and told the story about Norm, about how Norm was asked about Jim Downey being fired and what he thought about it. And Norm basically said, if you fire Jim, you're going to have to fire me too. Norm took this story to the grave. And the reason he didn't tell Jim, I can only imagine, is because he didn't want to big brother him. He didn't want to hold this shit over his head and be like, oh yeah, I got fired because I was trying to defend you or I was standing by you. Like, he didn't need to say that. Jim didn't even know about that until after Norm died. And NBC producers told him. So the fact that he took that to the grave and he didn't make it about Jim, he made it about himself, is just a really, really cool thing for him to do. Might not be the funniest, but in terms of who Norm was and how much he cared for his friends, this is going in S tier. I hadn't done a tier list in a while, so I wanted to do one. And if you enjoyed this and want me to do this with like another comedian, like Shane Gillis or someone else in the future, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and God bless.